My name is Jerry Chong. I was born in Kalinga, California, and when we were 5 years old, we moved to San Francisco, and that is where I went to school. I went to college, and also signed up to or enlisted in the Marine Corps. I was born in 1944. My mom and dad were immigrants from China. They came to the United States in the 1930s. My father came in the 1930s, and it was an arranged marriage. It was back in the old days in China, which by that time, during that period of time, was after they had overthrow of the Qing dynasty, and it was before World War II. So there was what they call a period of warlords were running the country then. It was just crazy, and in China there was famine. It was dangerous. There was no law enforcement or anything like that. It was just total chaos, and people were dying in the streets and starving to death. And that's why a lot of the Chinese that lived on the coast of China left and went to other countries. Like several of my uncles were in Peru. They died there. I think three of them on my mother's side. Then my grandfather on my father's side went to Australia. He died there. And then so my uncle came to the United States, and my father came also with him. He was about 16 years old then at that time. That would have been, he was born in 1951, so around 1931 was when my father came to the United States. He was 16 years old. And my mother was arranged marriage with him, and she came to the United States in 1940, just before the outbreak of World War II. So she was there in China when China with Chiang Kai-shek was a general, and they were fighting the Japanese, and they were also fighting the communists under Mao Zedong. Mm-hmm. So it was total chaos in China at that time, from about 1911 all the way until 1949, when the communists finally took control of China.
And then even worse after that.
Yeah, and drove out the nationalists to Taiwan.
And the Great Leap Forward and all that.
Yeah, that Mao Zedong, I think he's responsible for something like the death of about 10 million people. And then the other thing too is that they had those red guards, and the Chinese in China who are my age were the ones that were part of the Red Guards, and was the troops for Mao Zedong during the Great Leap Forward, and all of them, they were destroying, history, historical artifacts. They were punishing teachers and all that.
Yeah, they were the first group of really indoctrinated communist youth.
Right. All of those that were about my age or around my age who were in the Red Guards, they all got sent out into the farm rural area to do farming. Yeah, right. Just like regular people, so that they would know, what it was to be a proletariat and all that. And so a lot of them in China today, who are my age right here, have not had education. So they really, there's problem in terms of reading and writing, because all of that got outlawed, and that was again total chaos, and again, people starving and dying because of and they were all indoctrinated. I still have relatives who are still, in China and in Hong Kong, so because some of them, they left China, went to Hong Kong. There were those. Then there's those who stayed in China, and there were some that was, I was even told that some of my uncles were involved in the Korean War, which China calls it the American War.
Yeah.
It was part of the
Defense of the
army
Yalu
that,
River
right,
for them,
yeah,
is what
right,
they say.
exactly. That that get and attack in the Chosin Reservoir. But some of those Chinese soldiers that that part of the 500,000 or 250,000 Chinese soldiers crossed the Yalu River. Some of them were not trained. Some of them didn't even have any weapons at all. So it was a very, very bad time to be in China. So I I feel I'm very, very fortunate having been born in the United States, and my parents came to the United States, because I can't imagine what it's like to be living in China even today. I mean, under that type of strict governing and watching out for what you have to say or anything like that.
Right, the
It's only been
call-outs and
recently
stuff.
that China has just started becoming a lot more westernized.
Only in the capitalist sense, right? But that's still state run.
Oh yeah,
It's a really interesting book I actually just read about a guy who has since fled to England. Anyway, his wife, they disappeared her, and they were real estate developers,
Yeah,
and they fell on the wrong side of the regime, and that was in 2014.
right. It's like the tennis player. She's kind of disappeared.
Exactly.
And then I think Jack Ma, the guy who started Alibaba, you know, that's the communists for you. That's why we just I've been raised with a hatred of communism, because of what they did to China. That's
Well, it's an interesting perspective that it's always maybe the immigrant and the first generation who really feel the gratitude and or the heartbreak for the reasons why their family had to immigrate, because you grew up learning those tragedies of your family and the tearing away of your culture, and having, I mean, you said your grandfather went to Australia, and you had uncles that went to Peru, so dispersed all over the world.
right, so a lot of the Chinese who who immigrated to the United States have a fierce dislike or fierce hate for the Red Star. It's, in other words, they just do not tolerate and hate the communists for what they have done to the, and it's still like that.
Yeah.
You got some of those right now who just kind of accept China because business, it's business. Then there's those who are still, for political and personal and emotional reason, hate the communists. I had a Catholic education. I went to grammar school, St. Mary's Chinese mission. Grammar school from first to eighth grade, and then I went to Sacred Heart High School, which is Christian Brothers. So I had 12 years of Catholic private schools. I had a very good education. Obviously have a real good background in terms of education-wise from grammar school and high school.
Could you tell the difference between your education and your fellow Marines once you joined the Marine Corps?
Oh yeah,
The difference.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, the other thing too is I was older than they were too.
Yeah.
But most of them were high school dropouts or high school graduates. Nobody had gone to college, except me, and then the platoon commander. Yeah. We were the only ones that had gone to college.
So what year did you graduate high school?
1962.
1962. And what'd you do after that?
Oh, well, I went to San Francisco City College. Had a great time, Didn't do too good scholastically.
No.
But I just had a great time because I had just been freed from private Catholic school. Because Sacred Heart High School at that time, today it's co-ed, but at that time it was all boys.
Yeah.
This was all males school.
And was your family still living in San Francisco?
Yes, and so it was all male school. So no girls.
Whereabouts were you growing up?
San Francisco, Chinatown.
Okay. Then, because you grew up in San Francisco and you graduated high school in '62, so you did 2 years at college. So did you graduate there in 1964?
I graduated in 1964. It took me I think 2.5 or 3 years to get through 2-year college. I mean, I had a great time, but and then from there I transferred over to San Francisco State College.
Starting as a junior? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Starting as a junior, And then I was scholastically disqualified.
What does that mean? Your GPA dropped below a specific...
Right, exactly. So I got kicked out of school because I dropped below, I think, a 2.0 or something like that, whatever it was. And so I was now, a student, not non-student, and eligible for the draft.
Were you like upset about that, or were you more apathetic and maybe thinking about going into the military? So
I was more apathetic about it. It was at that time I think I was tired of going to school.
Yeah.
I was kind of drifting. I mean, just not really motivated to do anything at that point in time except just what I was doing, just having a great time, enjoying. And having a great social life.
In '65, were you really aware of Vietnam?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Because it was when I went to, we were aware of Vietnam right after we started going to at San Francisco State City College, because there were protests.
So right around when DM was assassinated, and you started having the the monks uprisings.
Right. Burning themselves up. And then, the assassination of DM, and then the Marines, being sent to Vietnam. That would have been in '65, Mm-hmm. So, and so I decided that I would join the Marine Corps, because I thought that, since I'm going to go to war, I should go with the best, because my chances are the best at surviving.
And you're saying because you thought you were going to get drafted?
Well, I was eligible for the draft. In fact, of the matter is, I think I got a draft notice.
But you beat them to the punch?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know I was eligible for a draft. I don't think I received a draft notice. I didn't. Because I know that.
So you didn't even have to go down to your local board yet. You just went on your own.
No, in terms of selective service, you had to register when you're 18.
But you didn't have to go for the physical and stuff like that, did you? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Because you joined the Corps.
Yeah, right. So I joined the Corps in '66 on a 180-day or 180-day program,
delayed entry program.
Delayed entry program.
Where they let you have your summer off and then you go promise to show up, or is it something like that?
Yeah.
Or whatever time period you sign up, they would do that.
Right. So you got it. And so, I went into the Marine Corps, thinking that, your best chance of survival is if you go with the best. And, based upon the sands of Iwo Jima and the DI and all the John Wayne stuff, I just thought, why not,
So was there a part of you that was kind of intrigued by that lifestyle to begin with, or?
I don't think I even really understood what the heck I was getting myself into. I mean, I don't think, it was just kind of like, I know that I'm going to get drafted, and I don't want to go in the Army, so then I don't want to join the Navy or the Air Force. So I don't want to go to the Army. So but there's, if I get drafted, I'll be in the Army, and I'm going to get sent to Vietnam. So if I'm due, I might as well join the Marine Corps. Yeah. I don't think I really understood what I was getting into, and I didn't know what I was getting into.
And I don't think any kid does.
I know that I know the first night I spent in Camp MCRD, yeah. Yep. The first night after the yellow footprint, and when I was laying down and hair had gotten shaved and looked really stupid, and did green utilities and all that, I remember thinking to myself, I think I made a mistake. which I think everybody else
Every
did.
single kid in that receiving barracks was thinking the
Think
same
the
thing.
same thing, yeah.
Probably for the first 3 weeks.
Well, after well, for me, it just, it's that night, and then after that, it's kind of like, well, I'm in it, so I might as well do my best.
Was it still 12 weeks then? Had they cut
No,
it back
it was
to 8?
then they had cut to 8
Yeah.
because they're trying to get as many Marines out.
Pump out a quarter more classes every year, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So so I didn't have to go through 12 weeks. I went through 8 weeks of boot camp. I did well enough that I was one of the top 10% that got private first class.
Really?
Yeah.
They did it.
In fact, I don't even know how I got it. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect to get it. I wasn't trying for it either. I was just trying to survive and pass the tests and be the best Marine I could be.
Physically, were you always athletic, in good shape? Did you play
No, I
sports?
wasn't. No.
Runner?
No, I was in terms of running because I didn't have a car, but we used to walk everywhere in San Francisco, over the hills and all that. So legs were pretty strong. I think probably I probably may have gotten it just because of the fact that I have a no quit attitude.
Yeah.
I remember marching into telling you cut the ground and cut the deck with all that, and then I ended up limping. It got pretty bad because it was hurt because my heel really hurt. But I was not going to tell anybody or complain about it because I didn't want to get put back.
Right.
So, but a drill instructor, my drill instructor, saw me limping. So I go, Private Chong, yes sir, get over here. He says, what the fuck's wrong with your leg? I said, no, well, it hurts, sir. He goes, report to, did you report to
Sick call?
Sick call? I go, no, sir. He goes, you report to sick call, So I did. And then and they went to the Navy hospital there, and then they said, you have heel contusions, I go, oh, okay. And he said, and you have to stay here, and we're going to keep you here for a couple of days.
That is painful. I stepped on a rock one time and had a bruised bottom of my foot on the heel.
Yeah.
That is hard to walk on.
I know that was, I had it on both foot.
Really?
And I'm going. So I said, so I pleaded with the corpsman, said, don't keep me here. I said, otherwise, I'm going to be set back.
You get dropped back to another class.
I'll go back to another class. I said, look, if it gets worse, I promise I'll come back, okay? Well, so the corpsman said, okay, all right. He goes, I really shouldn't be doing this, but, he goes, I understand, so he put me back, and, so I went back, and I didn't say anything at all, So then the drill instructor saw me and called me up and asked me, you go to sick call? He goes, what did the doctor say? And I said, well, they told me I had heel contusion. Well, what do they want you to do? I said, they wanted to keep me in the hospital for a couple of days. He goes, well, why the fuck are you here? I said, well, because I asked them, please don't keep me in a hospital because I want to go back to my platoon. And we're scheduled for mess week.
Yeah. The week of work, service week is what they call it now.
Okay, yeah. Was coming up. That was the next week, and I said, I think I can just heal, during that period. So I was on light duty that whole week, and then we would go out to the rifle range following that.
Yeah.
And I was fine.
That's good.
I healed up and.
So what were you doing when they were saying strike the deck when you're marching heel to toe? You're smashing your heel on that ground.
Oh yeah, right. I'm not realizing what I'm doing is injuring myself. Then that same drill instructor I don't realize. I just only afterward that I thought about it that I realized. You know how they have that they have the firing range out there, and then they have you in a circle, and then what happened? You're snapping in. Then
you're shooting a barrel, right?
And then you're supposed to lock. Then you're supposed to. What we were using M14s, you know, so you have to lock it back, and then you got to put that slider in there, in there, you know, whenever you left your rifle, you know. Because if you have to go to the bathroom or something like that, you know, at the range, you weren't allowed to bring your rifle with you. And so you're supposed to put a charger in there, and it keeps the bolt locked to the rear. So I always did that, you know. So I came back. That was this one time I came back, and my rifle's bolt was not locked. It was closed. I go, oh shit, you know, because I said, how the hell did that happen? I said, I'm positive I locked it back, you know, because I always try to, one of the things you do is you try to stay out of sight with the drill instructor. Don't bring any attention to yourself, you know, just stay out of sight, and you'll do fine, you know. So I said, oh Christ, because then of course they went around checking, you know. And the same drill instructor, Sergeant Thomas, what's his name, came, you know. And so, you know, for punishment, what we had to do was we had to put our hands out like that, and then they put the rifle right on your edge of your hand right there.
And for people who've never been made to do that, it is torture.
Oh yeah, right. And then and when he did that, I saw him looking at me. It's like looking to see what was my reaction, or was I going to say anything, you know? And I didn't say anything, and you know, so I just held it until they.
And after 10 minutes of that, when your shoulder feels like it's going to explode, it's on fire, it's burning,
right?
And they're like, "Oh, what's wrong? You can't hold 12 pounds. You can't hold a measly 12 pounds.
You're right. Yeah, your hands starting to drop. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't bring it up.
You're using your back muscles, your neck muscles, everything to keep your arms up.
Yeah, and no, so I afterwards I thought about it, and I said, I think that was a test, because I remember him looking at me, and I thought that was a little strange, because when he was putting a rifle on my hand like that, you know, I saw his eyes look up at me. He flicked up and looked at me, and he kind of stared at me, you know. It wasn't one of those type of look like that. It was one he was just looking like he's trying to see what your reaction is.
You definitely see that. They want to see if you have metal, and they you know. If they can break you for something as simple as that, then they know they got you, you know. And if they don't, then they're kind of like, maybe I can ease off this guy.
Right, and exactly. So I think that I think probably for that, you know, I think I think that's one of the reasons, or the reason why I was PFC out of boot camp. So you know, it was a real surprise, because I was just trying to make it through. So, but. A lot of guys got boot camp, and they were given orders to go to Vietnam right away. For whatever reason, I got orders to report to the 5th Marine Brigade in Hawaii, you know. So what the hell is the 5th Marine Brigade, you know? I mean, the 5th Marines was a division that was formed during World War II, you know, and I think for the Battle of Iwo Jima, you know. And it says but we figured, you know, well, you know, got sent there, so I reported into it. So it was 27th Marines, 1st Battalion, 27th Marines. So what they were doing was building up another battalion to be sent to Vietnam. 26 had just been sent over then. You know, 1, 2, and 3, 26, you know, were sent over, and they were assigned to 3rd Marine Division. So they ended up at Quezon and fighting up there. You know, during
the 26 was famous for being up at the
and then
Quezon.
so we were the 27th, and so I went there in, was it September? No, I guess either September, October, or I arrived with the 27th Marines, and then, they started building up the 27th Marine. We just kept getting new Marines in, on a daily basis.
So this is October 1966.
1966, yeah. And then in June or July of '67, and this is after I think following the hill fights of the Marines, we all got sent out as replacements. I mean, then from there, we got sent to went home on leave, and then went to Camp Pendleton for staging, and from there went to Okinawa, took us to Okinawa, and then to Vietnam.
So you fly into Da Nang?
Yeah.
From Okinawa?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a Pan Am jet.
No, if you flew into Da Nang, did that mean you were going to the 1st Marine Division, and if you flew into Chulai, you were going to the 3rd Marine Division, or did everybody fly into?
As I understand it, everybody flew into Da Nang, and at Da Nang is, well, backing up a moment, the division you were assigned to was happening in Okinawa. Okay. You were all, because you just fall out and they tell you do, and you just do, and you just walk in. Then we find out that they're assigning us to the division. Now, I had a friend that went to the 3rd Marine Division. So, I say to them, I tell the guy who's there, if I appreciate it if you could assign me to the 3rd Marine Division. 1st Marine Division. I should have said anything, I guess. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, So when we get to Da Nang, then they said, the guys who are scheduled for 3rd Marine Division go here, and guys in the 1st Marine Division come here, to the division headquarters.
So it's a step-by-step process. Now you're going to get your regiment assigned to you.
Right, yeah. Exactly, yeah. And then from division, you then get assigned to regiment, and we get, and I get sent out with a bunch of guys to the 7th Marine Regiment. I remember we're going on highway to Hill 55,
You guys called it the Red Line. Was it like Route 4 or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that, but we just called it.
Thunder Road is what the gunner called it.
Did he? Thunder Road. I was heading
towards Charlie
west,
Ridge,
toward Charlie's Ridge and Laos. We went in that way, and then we got to Hill 55. And then we get to Hill 55. Then they divide you into battalion you're going to go to. So we all get sent to the 3rd Battalion, and then so they truck us down to Hill 37. And then when we fall out there, they said they're going to assign guys out to, to the companies, So I think there must have been about 12 or 13 of us. These are all the guys I knew.
12 or 13 of you. There's 4 companies in a battalion.
In a battalion, you're right. 4 companies.
During Vietnam.
And so, I knew all these guys, because they were in Hawaii with me. So we were all
staging with them for 6 months.
Right, exactly. We all been staged together as a part of the 27th Marines. And on top of that, in the same company. That I was in Alpha 127, which goes to show you we were the first one that they used to start the 27th Marine with. I think it was 13 or 14 of us. So we all fall out, and they said, he goes, all of you are going to Kilo Company except 1 Marine. So I'm thinking, shit, what are my odds? Pretty damn good, I said, shit, there's 14 of us. I mean, he goes through 13 names, and I'm saying to myself, I can't believe this is happening to me, because, I'm Asian, so I'm aware of the fact we're in an Asian war, and I want to be with guys who know who I am and know me, so I don't run into any problems or some trigger happy Marine, Well, 13 names get called off, those guys leave, and I'm still standing there. He says, and at that time I was a corporal then. He says, Corporal Chong, report to my company up there, So that's how I went to my company there. And
so that was kind of a saving grace, the fact that you're an NCO getting assigned. So that's pretty good.
Right, exactly.
Other than, for people that don't know, it would be worse if you're a private getting sent into a where
Right,
other lance
exactly.
corporals and privates could tell you what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so I get assigned to my company, and that's where I run into McCrossan. The first time. And when I report in, to the clerk, I could feel this guy just staring at me, and I'm looking at and he's an Irishman. You could tell because he's got a ruddy face and all that, and he's just staring at me. And he's got the McCrossan has a cold blue eyes. It's just he has a scary look about him, And so he's staring at me, and I'm saying, "Oh shit!" I've already got someone who's pissed off at me, and some guy who was a rebel. And I knew that everybody knew who McCrossan was, because everybody addressed him with respect. You could just feel that, and you could hear that, that he was somebody that they all respected.
Now, he was just randomly in the clerk's office when you were in there?
He had what he had done, just got back from
R&R?
No, from the hospital.
Okay.
Because he had suffered white phosphorus burn on the hand.
Really?
Yeah, he got and so he had just gotten back from the hospital, and he was in the company hooch there, along with
salty dude
all the rest of the salty guys who've been there, and here I was in my stateside utilities. Everybody else was in jungle utilities, black boots, all clean, so you could tell, hey, I was the new guy there, So anyway, I report in, and then the clerk says, "Hey, Mac, we take Corporal Chong down to the my company hooch." And then I look at, and I want to see who Mac is, and then Mac steps forward, and he's got this look in his face that's, God damn, I got to put up with this shit, So I follow him out of the hooch, and we start walking toward where the Mike Company hooches are at. Those are those, the ones where they'll have those racks in there and all that.
Were they tents, or were they actually were they plywood, or were they like Quonset huts?
Not Quonset huts. They were
so they
plywood.
were like plywood shacks.
Yeah, right, with the
a little bit off the floor with a tin
yeah,
roof.
Right, exactly.
Screen.
With screen on it for mosquitoes.
Bottom, top.
Yeah. So, and the first thing he's walking, he turns to me. He said, first thing he says to me, he goes, "You see all those fucking gooks down there?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I like to take a machine gun and kill them all." He's looking at me to see my reaction,
Is he like testing you?
Yeah, right. So I looked at him and I said, I came here to kill Viet Congs and NVAs, not civilians. So I didn't. So then we didn't say anything. We went, but I could feel his hostility. What I took to be hostility. Which I later learned it wasn't hostility. It was more or less that he had to know or be assured that I could be dependent upon.
And this was a standard kind of coldness that, would you say, veterans treated new guys with when they showed up to a platoon? I'm sure that happened dependent. I think for me, I was fortunate because it was because when I got assigned out to my company, and then the guys that I was with were also with 3rd Platoon, and so I had met some of them. So when I got out there, I was the new guy with the brand new jungle utilities and brand new rifle, and but guys like Ray Kennedy, looked after me, and Chuck Hill. Because Chuck Hill so because you're a corporal, were you automatically assigned as the squad leader? Or
No,
was there kind of like a squad leader's going to stay whoever it is until you prove yourself type of thing?
Oh, yeah, right, absolutely. I was going to, there's no way I would have been a squad leader, and I wasn't even a fire team leader. They made me a grenadier,
Okay.
But before we went out there, I got called into the office by Lieutenant Van Dyne, who was the XO at that time, and he says, Corporal Chong, he goes, We just lost a clerk here, and we need a clerk. And I see that you've had 2 years of college, and I would like you to make you our new company clerk. I go, and to me, I said, shit, that's not what I want to do. I didn't. No, so I started again, try to do the same type of thing I did with the corpsmen in boot camp there. I said, well, sir, I appreciate the thought very much, but I didn't come to Vietnam to be a clerk. I'm not trained to be a clerk. I'm an 0311, and I came here to fight fight the war. So if you don't mind, I would rather be out in the field. I want to be assigned out in the field. And, when he said that, he thought I would be just really happy, because he kind of, and then so he kind of looked at me and he said, are you sure you know what you're doing? I go, yes, sir. And he says, okay. So then he says, which platoon are you going to? And then I said, I don't know. So he looked at a chalkboard or something like that, and he goes, you're being assigned to 1st Platoon, but I'm reassigning you to my old platoon, 3rd Platoon, So that's how I ended up in 3rd Platoon,
Do you think there was some concern with maybe the NCOs or the officers, like, all right, he's the only Asian Marine in the company, or in an Asian war, things could get hairy or something could happen? And
nobody ever said anything to me about that. But I'm sure they must have thought it. I'm sure they thought of it, because, I remember the first time when we left Hill 52, when we were taking us up 52, they took us to 65, And so I'm there with the rest of, with 3rd Platoon there, right there. And then there's some officers that suddenly just started screaming and says, what the hell is that gook on the fallen hill, And then Tony Camacho starts laughing. He goes, that's our squad leader, Corporal Chong, I mean, so, right away, I, just because for I was Asian, when I was in my company out there, nobody said anything. Nobody made any cracks. I was just treated like any other Marine, and if anything, just like, I think the first day or second day after I got to Hill 52, I was in the same bunker as Chuck Hill, and I thought, and he was the first guy that I saw after, because they told me the bunker is go down to that squad bunker down there, So I go down there, and unbeknownst to me, the guys who were in that bunker, who was there, were working just outside there. I guess they were on a working party or something like that. And Chuck Hill was there, and so I go inside the bunker and I sit down with all my new stuff and all that, and suddenly pulls open and face pops in looking at me, And I looked and says, who the fuck are you? It turned out Chuck Hill saw this Asian walking down there. He goes, what the hell's he doing in the camp? So he ran down here to see what the heck I was doing. And I said, hi, I'm Corporal Chong. I've just been assigned to the squad, and I was told to be here. He goes, oh. He goes, where you from? I said, San Francisco. I said, where are you from? He goes, He goes, Hayward, which is right outside San Francisco. And that was the start of our friendship, So because that was the same who's he was in, So, and then so the day after that, which I didn't know then, that him and Ray Kennedy were two peas in a pod. I went the next day. We were supposed to be going out on a working party, actually to fill sandbags is what they did, So, I've never used a shovel before. And I mean, I'm a city boy, and so they give me a shovel, and, I'm trying to do the best I can with a shovel, And Kennedy's right across from me, and I can see him standing there just watching me struggle with a shovel. And he says, give me that goddamn shovel and damn city slickers, you know, you don't know how to use a damn shovel, you know. So he takes the shovel from me and he starts digging and filling the sandbags for me, you know.
Had he been there much longer than you?
Oh yeah, him and Chuck Hill, that was probably about around 6 months then.
So they're halfway through their
yeah,
combat
right.
tour.
They're old veterans. Then they had been through
DeSoto.
and had
Opened up that region of the fight, right?
yeah, right,
52,
and started
25.
52. Yeah, right, exactly. They were the ones who opened. So he was the. And I remember that, and he says, "Jay, you know, okay, you know," but I took it that he just that. You know, he just wasn't happy with me at all. You know, I mean, I didn't do a very good job of fitting in. You know, because all the rest of these guys are all tan and dark and all that. You know, and I'm all white because you know they've been working out there, you know, digging foxholes and trenches and putting up, wires. You know, all the guys were basically all skinny guys. You know, I mean they're. You know, they could carry a lot, like Chuck. You know, I mean, he didn't weigh any more than what, 125 pounds.
When you guys are humping all day,
Yeah.
you're probably not carrying a lot of food and eating a lot of food, right? And
No.
you're burning a ton of calories.
Oh yeah, right. Right. You have to learn how to conserve water. You know, I mean, you're issued 2 canteens. You know, and so you make do with those 2 canteens, or you know, after a while you practice. You know, because you practice water discipline, it's like that. You know, when you don't drink water, you kind of sip. You just take and you know, and then on top of that, you've got the halazone tablets in there, so it doesn't taste very good. You know, I mean, you could put Kool-Aid in there. That's what some of us did. Yeah, it was called Kool-Aid. I didn't care for it because what I did is that it was kind of sweet. And then on top of that, I always was very careful to put in halazone tablets because they get
Malaria.
And diarrhea. You know, the dysentery. You know,
There's dysentery. Giardia is another one. Drinking unclean water.
right? Exactly, because you know it's kind of have to laugh about that. You know, I saw a photograph that somebody had taken, and what it was a picture of Mac with his back to him, but he's obviously peeing into the river, and then behind him there's a guy with his canteen out. So that's so you know I ended up there, and I was I don't know, see, I think I became I was grenadier, then I became a fire team leader, and then shortly after that, I became a squad leader because the squad leader that I was with, second squad leader, rotated out.
You have just gotten to Vietnam. You are a corporal. Mm-hmm. You're a father.
Yeah.
You're married.
Right.
You're 20 years old.
Yep.
College educated.
Right. You know, of course, you know, when I get out to the hill there, you know, I mean, I didn't tell anybody, you know, about I had turned down being a clerk and all that, you know.
Yeah.
But I got out to the hill there and everybody knew, you know, I mean, that I had turned it down. And, you know, I mean, it's kind of like, boy, you are really stupid. And they said, you know, you're going to be sorry, you know. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is I never regretted that decision. No matter how, you know, no matter what it was, I never gave it a second thought after that. You know, about what I could have done or would have been easier. You know, I mean, I wouldn't be who I was if I did that. I would feel like the guy who felt that, you know, I ran away when there was a time to stand and fight. You know, it's just, and you have to live with yourself. You know, I had no regrets. You know, I never had a second thought about it afterwards. You know, I just concentrated on the fact of just, you know, I was trying to be the best Marine I could be, and not let anybody down, and not make any mistakes to get people killed. And
so tell me about your first couple of weeks. What were the growing pains, or what were the successes that you're like, wow, I can do this?
Well, you know, I was assigned to third platoon, second squad, and squad leader was one that had been there, and I guess it was just around the almost time for him to rotate out, and it was almost his 13th month or something like that. So I mean, he was very, very experienced in regards to things. So I just kind of watched him and followed him. I was a grenadier then, and then sometimes what happened is that I tried to get rid of being a grenadier, just be a rifleman, and I would go out I would go out whenever the platoon would go out. We went out on ambush. We went out on I was out on the ambush, and then I mean, it's kind of like when I was a grenadier, one of the problems I had was deciding at night how do you cock your 45. How do you hold it? Because nobody ever told me, with a 45. What do you do? How if do you have a round in the chamber, or you don't have a round in the chamber? Do you have a full cock, half cock? What?
What did you decide on?
Round in the chamber, half cock.
I like that.
And then during ambushes, because if I got an M79 where it's such close range, I don't know if it would arm itself, in the distance.
Yeah, because it had roughly 21 feet.
Yeah, right.
Like
Had to travel a certain amount of distance.
Had to spin so many times, right?
Right. So so I slept with the 45, just like that, just like that. So that.
Did you carry flechette rounds?
No, we didn't have that.
That's what Vasquez said, that all he had was HE.
Yeah.
And I was surprised, maybe this was later in the war, but a lot of people had flechettes, CS, meaning smoke grenades, tear gas.
Yeah. At that time, we didn't have any.
Just had HE.
That's all we had. HE, and then I don't even, Vasquez would have all of his rounds in it was an ammo bag, carry, but mine's they come in 6, and then so, and usually you carry 30 to 40 of them. That's more weight. I mean, those grenades are heavy. You know? I mean, the same thing with a 45. I remember, like the first time we went out on an operation, I said, I better take some ammo with me, because with the 45 we had just 3 magazine, which is basically 21 rounds. You got 2 in the pouch, and you got one in the gun.
7 in the mag and 1 in the chamber. You got 8 rounds.
Right, exactly.
And for anybody who's never had a magazine of 45, it's like a roll of quarters. So you can imagine, like, a couple of those gets heavy.
You can imagine carrying 50 of them.
Yeah.
So the first operation I went out on, I got a box of 50 45 ammunition.
Basically a brick.
Yeah. Boy, did I regret that, man. It was heavy. It was. And it just got heavier and heavier the longer we were out. After that, I said,
cutting edge.
We were carrying haversacks. We were using haversacks. That's the type of stuff they used in World War II.
So is that why most Marines, you say, in books and literature, always wanted to get a VC pack?
Right, NVA pack, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the NVA carried better packs than the Marine Corps did.
Right, it was bigger and carried more, and it was more comfortable and all that. So I got one.
You got an NVA pack?
Yeah. Huh. So, those haversacks, they didn't carry. You couldn't carry very much stuff. Everything out in order to get to the bottom. So, and then and it could only carry. And then for C ration, a lot of time what you had to do is, you couldn't leave them in the boxes. You had to take them all apart. And then to get more room, what happens is sometimes you stuff them into socks.
And then hang them on your pack?
Hang them on your pack.
So you could reach it on a patrol?
No, so you can carry more in the haversack.
Yeah.
You know, if it's, I guess maybe I have a fatalistic type of an attitude. You know, it's just there. It's something you got to bear. You know, this is something. It's part of being part of being an infantryman. You know, you're on your feet. You're gonna, you'll be sloshing, which I hated. I hated was just sloshing through the rice paddy and mud, and all because then there'll be all kinds of like leeches and stuff like that. You know, they get onto you. And so then you got to burn them off. You're walking, and your boots are just caked with mud, so they're so heavy. I think probably for me that was the worst part. Was then because after that, you walk through rice paddy, through mud, and then you walk through anything that's wet and muddy, or you got to cross a stream or river. I mean, the one that's really the worst set is being tired from a lack of sleep, because there was a couple of things that appeared to be just pure heaven. If it was, it got down to to what was really wonderful and just heaven. It was one, be able to smoke a cigarette without worrying that you're going to get shot or giving off, because that's why you always cover it up. Second thing was being able to sleep the night through without having to wake up. Because, every night you're there, you would have to wake up and at some point in time during the night to stand whole watch or ambush or patrol, wake, because you always have to have, in a squad, what happens, every fire team would have, like on an ambush, one person, awake. A fire team's composed of four people, but most of the time it was maybe only 2 or 3. So what happens then is that you get even less sleep because you don't have as many people to, to circulate around. So that was it's kind of like, you stand down at 10, then you got whole watch and all that, so you got to wake up at 2, and then you got to stay awake on the watch until 4, and then you go back to sleep, and you have to wake up at 5. And,
Right. And you're in a hole or in a bunker in the ground outside. If it's raining on you. If it's windy, if it's cold, if it's hot, you're there. You're not moving.
And it's wet, it's just...
You can't smoke a cigarette. You can't talk.
No, right, can't talk, can't do anything. You just, I mean, and then it gets so cold sometimes because, you're wet,
not moving,
wind, and then you're not moving and everything like that. So what you do is you kind of go real deep inside yourself, just to kind of numb yourself to, to the feelings. Otherwise, you would start shaking. You wouldn't be able to put up with it. You wouldn't be able to bear it.
It sounds like you're kind of describing like you're just developing grit. You're going inside yourself. You're kind of reaching for that. Like internally, you're taking that adversity, and you're just kind of locking it down, going inside yourself. What you mean is like
going deep inside yourself, so that it's kind of like you don't feel anything. You're not. You're not thinking about anything, but you're perfectly aware of what's going on, because obviously, if there's a enemy patrol walking by, you got to be awake to it,
And you're not just doing this for fun. There are people out there probing your position, trying to find Marines sleeping, trying to get into your position. Or potentially just walking through, trying to just get from one area to another. So what you were saying, there's the torture of like being on watch but being dead tired and just on the nod and trying to stay awake. That's right. It's brutal, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Trying to, and then, just then if you're on the hill, then you stand up and you can walk around and just kind of pace around. But if you're in an ambush, or if you're set in for the night, you can't do that. You can't get up and walk around, you know. You're there, and then with all the guys around you, you know, they're sleeping and you're awake.
So if you can remember your first time either getting assigned an ambush at night or an LP, do you remember what's going through your mind? What you're like, oh, am I going to do all the right things when I need to do them? Or what's it going to be like? Or, you know, is the Chinese army going to come over the Chosin Reservoir and invade?
No, I didn't think anything like that. You know, it was just, you know, walking along or at night with, you know, with our squad leader, and at that time now I had a rifle, because I'm armed now with a rifle, so you know, I'm just following right behind everybody else, you know. And then what happened is that we were stopping. I don't know why, but the squad leader asked me to go with him, to follow with him up to it, and he kind of like recon ahead, I guess, because he had the rest of the squad down. And then when he got up, it was just kind of like we're up close by the road or something like that, you know. And he says, you know, you wait here, and I'll come back and get you. You know, so I said, okay, you know.
So he's setting Marines into positions for the night, is what you're saying?
No, I
he
think
wanted to set you in, or he was going to look at something and he just told you to stop.
right. No, I think what happened, he wanted me to stay on watch there just in case there was enemy coming down. He was going to go get the rest of the guys.
Got it.
And then continue the patrol, and that's what happened. But you know, he goes, so I'm, you know, I'm laying down and I'm staring at dark. Can't see nothing. It's dark. So the only thing you do depend upon your hearing. And then, but before he leaves, I go, what do I do if I see the enemy? He says, don't do nothing. You know? Just stay still.
So what's the point?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What's the point of having you there?
Right. So I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing here? You know what? You know. But of course, obviously, what he wanted me was just to make sure that we didn't, you know, as we're getting ready to leave, that there's a force that's coming, a patrol coming down the road.
Yeah.
You know. But he didn't want. And he didn't want anybody, or you know, to know or give away our position, that where we were going, or where we were headed out, you know, or where we were, because what happens then is they can pass the word around, saying that we're in that area, and you know, and then number one was stay away from it, or go in there and find those Marines and kill them, you know.
How do you think, theoretically, how would 6 months in Vietnam, Jerry Chong react to maybe being that person and running into a group of enemy versus your first or second patrol doing that? Would you have done anything, or would you have taken that guy's advice?
Well, he was a squad leader, and I would have listened to what he had to say.
I'm saying if it was 6 months later and now you've been in the bush for as long as you were and you were a squad leader, would you do something differently? Would you fire, throw a grenade, or try to stay quiet?
Oh, I would fire. Yeah. I you know, I mean, that's what we were there for, you know. That's what is it? You know, that's the word of a Marine rifleman, right? Close with the enemy, kill them, and destroy his will to fight. It depends upon the individual squad leader on how they look at things. You know, everybody may do things differently. So.
Right.
With the you know, like the corpsman, Doc Butler was the one who told me that he said, you know, that the corpsmen thought it was really interesting how their platoon was, you know, and you know, you got one squad leader who's, you know, very cautious and careful. You got one that is just kind of reckless and sometimes crazy. And then you got one that's right in between everybody, you know. So I'm the one that's right in between, you know.
So, okay.
And my Crossan is the crazy one, you know.
Crossan's the crazy one.
And that's why Doc Butler liked going out with me, you know.
You're in the middle.
Right in the, I'm in the middle, and you know, I'm not reckless, and, you know. But on the other hand, I'm not overly cautious either, you know.
Okay, so you're even tempered, even keeled.
Right, right. Because if you're overly cautious, you know, and you're not going to do anything. You're not going to be able to do anything, because you know, fear paralyzes you, and you know, and if you're a squad leader, that just can't happen, you know, and
Right.
you know, freezing or cowering like that, you know. Yeah, there's, you know, that happens too, you know. Some, you know, but I myself, I think I was always more worried about that I didn't want to let other Marines down. And I was always aware that I was a squad leader, and you know, my mission was to close with the enemy and kill them and destroy their will to fight, at the same time protecting as many of the guys as I could, you know, so that they don't get killed.
So pretty quickly you know, you start to earn your pay, and people start to see that you know what you're doing, and you are a corporal, you get made the squad leader. Can you talk about some of your patrols that you were out that, you know, when you came in contact, or how you came in contact with the enemy?
Well, there's in terms of patrol wise, you know, because I'm behind, I'm like about the fourth person back, because you have the point person, then you got slack, the person who covers it, then you probably got the fire team leader, and then behind that is then me, because I walk always right behind the first fire team leader, first fire team, and then behind me is the radio men and corpsmen and
Are
grenadier.
you generally in column, or are you doing echelon, or are you in a wedge formation, or does it depend on the terrain and how you?
Oh yeah, usually you walk in a line, you know, one after another, walk in a line, and then depending upon the terrain and depending upon ability to see, determines how far apart you stay. You know, so you adjust for that. You know, there are nights where it was so dark that you couldn't see anything, and you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face if you put it up. It was that dark, and so what you have to do is hold on to the guy in front of you, and then you're just kind of following like the blind leading the blind. You know, the other thing too has been out. You know, when we're out on ambush and all that, and in the dark, a lot of time you can't see what's going on. You have to go by hearing, you know, in terms of it. And so in ambushes, I always set out claymore mines, you know, so that I have one that, you know, fire right down the trail, and one that, you know, to close to close the exit so that they can't get out, you know. And then depending upon if it was how steep the position I was in, you know, then I would put one right in the middle there, down there. But remember, there's a tremendous back blast, you know, so you got to be careful, because, you know, if you're sitting right behind it or somewhere close to it, and that back blast will just, you know, can end up injuring you, you know. So did you
ever run into that situation where you clacked off a claymore and you felt the concussion from it?
Oh yeah, right. You know, you can feel it when it goes off. It just go boom, and it just and you could just hear things just flying down there. And so you know, so I would do that. So, you know, the times that we would run into was basically usually on hearing. You know, they don't know where we're at, because when I set off the claymore, they don't know, because we haven't fired, so they can't track our the sparks from the rifle.
Tracers.
The trace. Yeah.
So talk about that tactic. It's always better to throw a grenade or drop a claymore than start popping rounds off, because that.
Right. Exactly. Because that gives away your position. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is, you don't know how big a force it is that you just hit. You know. I mean, you know, you're just setting it. You know, you're setting it off, and you know, and you're hoping that they don't know where you're at, so that, you know, so they can't find you. Otherwise, if they know where you're at, there's a big force, they're gonna turn around and charge right at you, you know, and come right at you. So, you know, generally, I was able to avoid fighting by using that type of tactics, you know. When I was on the killer team, we didn't do that. And talking about tracers, that that depends upon, that's also an individual thing. You know, I use tracers every fourth round, you know, and the reason for that is because in the dark, you can't see where you're shooting at, but if you have tracers, you can see where you're aiming at, the direction and what area you're shooting into. A lot of guys don't like it because it pinpoints your position in terms of that. You know, so you let the enemy knows where you come because they can see the tracer coming out.
How were the killer teams, and can you describe what you called them, what it is, and how they were proposed to you, how you were approached for that?
Right. Well, what happened? I think it's probably. I'm thinking it was. It was before the overrun of Hill 25, so it must have been around October. I wasn't a squad leader then.
So you've been in country 2 months.
Yeah, right.
67 October.
Right, exactly. And then so what happened is that, I guess the company commander came up with the idea that he wanted to send out a reconnaissance team, you know, going out, you know, without flak jacket, without helmets, you know, going out in the middle of the night, you know, to try to set in somewhere to try to see if we can determine where the NVAs were walking or crossing. You know, there was a river there. I mean, that was right in front of us. That's that river that I was telling you about in front of us. Sangbugia River. Yep. And so he wanted to, and so he wanted to find out where they were crossing at. And so, you know, so I guess he informed the platoon commander, the 3rd platoon commander and the 1st platoon commander. And he said, and they were asking for volunteers, you know. So I volunteered, but you know, they had decided that McCrossan was going to be the killer team leader. And so McCrossan had the discretion to say yay or nay, you know, because... So
McCrossan is given free rein to pick his crew.
Right. Whoever volunteered, he had the power to pick who he wanted to go with him. You know, it was decided 6 guys would go out, you know, together. So, you know, so I volunteered, and, you know, I was just only there short then, but, you know, I didn't think I would get picked or anything like that, you know. But McCrossan picked me, Kennedy, Chuck Hill, Ketchmark over there, and I'm trying to remember what was the 6th guy. The 6th guy, I'm trying to remember who that was, but I remember the first fire team or first team that went out.
Was a corpsman always with you?
No. We had a radio. Kennedy carried the radio, you know, so we would always be in touch with it. He was our squad, and he was also our platoon radio man, you know. So Kennedy was with the radio. There was Chuck Hill. There was myself. There was McCrossan. I think it was and Ketchmark. That's what, 5 of us, and there was a 6th. I'm trying to remember. Right. So I didn't. So you know, that picture right there, back there, that right here, that was right after we came back in from the first Snoopy team.
The picture of you and McCrossan.
No. This picture down here, excuse me.
Oh, I see.
This picture right here, you know, without any helmets or
yeah.
That was that. So when we had McCrossan, you know, picked us, you know, to go with him, which I was kind of surprised, you know, that he picked me, because I was pretty new. And then
was it also reassuring in a way, kind of like maybe he sees potential in me?
I was going out with a bunch of guys who were very experienced, you know, who have been with the platoon probably the longest, you know, like Chuck Hill and Ketchmark and Ray Kennedy and all that, and G. McCrossan. So all the rest of the guys had about at least 6 months in, you know. I was the only kind of new guy. But, you know, I get, but I'll tell you a story about me and McCross in a little later, so it clicks. Anyway, I thought I would probably team up with Chuck Hill, and all that. But McCrossan said no. I would team up with him at the ambush, where we set in. We would team up in two and two. So Chuck Hill and Kennedy were together, and then Ketch Martin, the other guy, was together, and McCrossan and I were together. Which from that time on, we were always the two guys that were together. And so we were supposed to do recon. That's what the captain wanted us to do. We're out there. It was second night, maybe the third night. We were out. Let's see, usually out 3 days, 2 nights. We stay out completely. Bring 3 cans of ration with us, so yeah, 1 per day. Canteen, lots of ammunition. And then so McCrossan decides that, because we see these crossings, and they're further down the stream from where we are, but the first couple of nights we see them, so we reported it to the company commander. We change position, go down a little bit closer to try to find out where they're at without attracting any attention. And, so they crossed I think for 2 nights. We watched them cross for 2 nights. And I guess McCrossan couldn't stand it anymore. But because I think on the 3rd night, I guess we were out 4 days and 3 nights. And because on the 3rd night, he decides that we're going to go down there and ambush them. And I'm going, Mac, I think the company commander wanted us to stay here and just report on what we saw. He says, I didn't hear anything. He goes, I have a problem with radio. There's too much static. I didn't understand any. I couldn't hear what he said. So we mount up, and we go down to where they've been crossing right there and just set in.
It's like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, about 1 o'clock. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning.
And you're slinking down towards the river.
Right. In the dark,
And on the other side is a mountain range where the enemy's infiltrating your area.
Right, exactly. From one end,
And
that's Charlie Ridge. Then you
Yes,
cross
sir.
that river, and that's Arizona on the other side.
And yeah, and for perspective, if anybody's ever been to California like I am now, it's almost like the hills that rise out of LA or Camp Pendleton, and you're at the base of those hills.
Right.
And the enemy's pouring down them, trying to infiltrate the area.
Correct. To get across through our area of responsibility.
And your Snoopy killer team leader,
So, yeah, decides he
wants to get some.
Yeah, right. So we go down there and we set in there, and waiting for anybody to see if anybody's going to cross. No idea where they're going to cross at. We just know we're somewhere in that area, And so then we're sitting there and just in a line and an ambush, and then so McCrossan decides he's going to check this out, because he said we haven't seen anybody or crossing or anything like that. So he walks down to by the river edge right there, and he's trying to look down the stream there, see what's happening. And damn if I didn't! At that time, here comes about 6 VCs and in a boat that's floating by, or the NVA, whatever they were and they're crossing right by us, And so, the ambush is set off by whoever's the leader. Nobody else shoots until the squad leader or the killer team leader opens fire, So, and we didn't have to we didn't have to tell each other that, because we all knew. So we're all in a line like this, and McCrossan's down by the river edge, and luckily he's hidden by the bushes that was in front, and plus it's so dark, so I guess you couldn't see it because we're in the back, because it's all dark in the background. So they come floating down, and McCrossan steps out from behind, just so they go past him. McCrossan steps out, and opens fire, shooting this way, right downstream now, because that's where they're going. We're up, we're up here, So then everybody opens up right here, shooting downward right there. I mean, there's a hell of gunfire. I mean, the people on the hill told us they just heard a complete blast of, it was like a burst of gunpowder, all at one time. It sounded like a platoon opened up. But I remember us all opening up all at the same time. And and then what happens? We could see bodies falling. And they were going over and all that. And then we were trying to. And then normally when you do that, you get the hell out of that area. You don't hang around in that area like that. But back wanted to be sure that we had, killed people. And Ray, I don't know what about Ray. Ray decided he was going to jump in the river and go down to the bottom, see if he could find any bodies, or he could see any bodies. And then that's what he did. And then I'm saying,
pitch black.
It's pitch
Sounds like
black.
A horror movie.
Yeah, all right. And I'm going. I mean, there was enough moonlight that you could see onto the river,
like that
but you could
shimmer, yeah.
right, but you couldn't see if you were in the river looking up, because it were all dark. It was all darkness, and I'm thinking to myself, I said, we need to get the hell out of here, because if there's another patrol, NVA patrol coming, they know where we're at, because they could have. Obviously, they would have seen all the the bullets flying, the tracers flying at them, and we need to get out of here. So, but they wanted to check to see if we could get proof. But we didn't.
That makes sense for Marines. Oh, you guys just shot at the water,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, right. You get shot, didn't shoot anybody. Whatever.
And that stream, the water's moving fast enough that a body's going to float away if it falls in there.
Yeah, right. And later on, what happened is that they 6 bodies, counts up on it.
So somebody notified you that you got 6.
Yeah, the villagers advised us. We knew there were 6 because when they went floating by, on duty, or 6, and that what you're supposed to do when you shoot right into the area at about 45-degree angle. You don't go shooting up there like that. So so what happens? There's overlapping fire, and we all knew. We all knew that instinctively that we do that. You shoot into your area of responsibility, and we found out later that we were told that 6 bodies washed up on the, up onto the beach further down. That was told to us by intelligence, I guess, who I guess had found out about that, or had learned about it, and how they did. I really don't know. I assume that they were advised by some villagers or something like that, or because those guys were all strangers in the area, so. It's kind of like, just, if we want the body, come get them, So what we did is just, saddle up, got our gears, walk back up toward the row, the what we call the red line. In the meantime, the captain had sent out the first platoon, because he was. Because we were not supposed to be shooting on an ambush and all that, So he thought we got ambushed or something like that, So he had sent out the first platoon was rushing down the red line toward us, to help us. And here we go. We're walking back up toward theirs, And then what happens? We hear over the radio. That they were coming down the red line, so that we don't. So we had to be careful. We didn't let them shoot each other, So we linked up with the first platoon, and then and went back to went back to the base camp, me and Hill 52, and so we end up reporting to the captain, what happened, and he says, what happened? We thought we'd get a little bit closer to where they're at and find out where they were, and they came upon us suddenly, and so we ended up shooting. Captain didn't buy that, At that time, our call sign was Snooper, Then after that, the captain decided that since we were so aggressive in terms of it, and we're looking for action or we're trying to kill people, he started sending us out, and the name Snooper got shortened to Snoopy, Not it's Snoopy was the call sign, but we were referred to as the killer team, So that's why it's called the Snoopy Killer Team.
And from then on, you guys started having more success, and
yeah, well, because it was kind of like, it's kind of crazy, You're out there by yourself. You're staying out like 4 days, 3 nights.
Sleeping days, up at night.
Sleeping days during the night, moving at night. We went up to Charlie's Ridge. We're down the river.
You guys are just messing around.
Oh yeah, right. And what happens? We were told by the company commander where to go to, what area, so that they knew where we were at. And then we were up in Charlie's Ridge. And Mac is the killer team leader. So we're walking along and snooping and pooping in through the bush because 2 nights before, or the night before, there had been a patrol had set off an ambush, in the area where we were, and they had shot up a NVA patrol that was there. So we were in that. We were sent back into that area right there to kind of see what was going on and check out the area for if there was additional movement down there. So we're creeping along right there, and I'm in the front, not really walking point, but I guess what we're doing is walking alongside the trees, so you're kind of like blending into the bush. You're not walking out in an open area. And then I look down there and I see, a whole bunch of movement going on. And I look down there and it's the area where the ambush went off, and there's NVAs. Must have been what, 20, 30 NVAs down there, massing down there, There's 6 of us, and I said, "Hey, man," he says, and he looks over there and I said, "Let's get artillery and drop," because I was thinking, hey, we're just going to blow all of them up, with artillery. Max says, "No," he says, "We're going to go down there and kick their ass." We're going to do what, And and then so by the time I turn around and say, "Mac," just to tell him, word of caution here, he's already walking away. He's already walking down toward them, and so all of us just follow right behind him, And then we got online, and then and started moving down toward them because we wanted to close with them before we started shooting. Thinking that hoping that we wouldn't be spotted. We didn't think we would be spotted. Except we forgot that they had a watch that was up on Charlie's Ridge. We were at the bottom of the ridge and there was somebody that was up in the hill, and we could suddenly hear them shouting. No.
Or there's somebody above you as a watcher.
There's a watch. They had somebody that was watching because we were higher ground than them, going down. They were down on the ground level. We were still kind of like at the bottom of Charlie's Ridge, just creeping along, and we could all of a sudden we could hear somebody yelling or something like that. Then all of a sudden you saw them start running. And they're all running back toward the Charlie's Ridge. And so we started shooting,
Did they start shooting back?
Nope. They're too busy
They
running.
don't know if a platoon's coming there.
Right.
They don't know if a company
Exactly.
online is coming at them.
They do not know how many of those was. Danny Long was firing on automatic. The M14 he was carrying, So because he was trying to make it sound like we had a machine gun or something,
Right.
or it's different from
It's not cracking like an
right. It's not like an
AR.
M6, not like an M16, So and then the M14 fires the same bullet as our M60 machine guns, the 7.62, and so they just like that, And I was just thinking to myself, I said, shit, we could have just bombed the shit out of them, we could have dropped them.
Did you get spooked a little bit after they took off? Like, did you say, let's DD out of here? Or were you like...
No, by that time, you're already in it. So you're not, you're not thinking about anything else except what's at hand and what you got to do at hand.
Right.
Everything else is just block out.
Just meaning now that the element of surprise is gone, are you guys going to try to kind of like...
Oh, yeah, right. Still,
drift back into your AO? You're kind of on the
right, we're there.
side of
We're
the
out
line.
there. We're out there already when they started running. And that's when we said, shit, we knew we'd been discovered. And so, we started opening up and firing at them, I think we dropped couple, 2 or 3 or whatever, but
Did it ever go through your mind like, this is how the enemy's fighting us and we're fighting them like that?
Yeah.
And maybe we should all fight like this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. So then he said, it's kind of like people said, oh, they ruled the night. And I said, bullshit. They may rule the night somewhere else, but not in our TAOR. They did not rule the night. Not where we were. Maybe somewhere else, but not where we were.
Because you're aggressively patrolling at night.
Right, exactly. That's what triggered off that big. That's the reason why they had that big plan to take us all out on.
Overrunning Hill 25 was the action, but I think the goal was to wipe out Hill 52 Marines as a QRF, trying to save them. And then the larger tactic for the NVA for TET was to get as many Marines out of the cities that they want to invade and helping out the Marines that are out in the boonies.
Right, and getting like you said, getting as many, because they were coming out of Charlie's Ridge, which is it borders Laos. So Ho Chi Minh Trail.
The Ho Chi Minh Trail is dumping into there.
Right, and it comes right in, and it runs right into our TAOR. And I believe what you just described is true, because attacks usually happens at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's usually when you're most tired, and everybody's just, they're weary and tired, and they're trying to, from a lack of sleep, or and their guards are down the most. The attack on Hill 25 was about 1 o'clock. Which meant that they were what I think they were expecting that there was going to be a major battle that they wanted to have happen before it became daylight.
Right.
Because daylight, we rule the daylight because we got choppers, and we got artillery and all that. But the night, it's a lot more difficult to see.
So we can explain that to me in by the 2 goals. There is a force that is going to attack Hill 25.
Right.
And they're successful. And I'll ask you to describe that. But there's also maybe a larger force that are waiting for the approach routes to Hill 25 for any Marine platoon coming from Hill 52, your hill. That night, what kicks off?
Well, that night it's about
November 2nd,
yeah, right.
2 a.m.
Yeah, we were on hull watch and all that, and all of a sudden, we just hear you hear, bullets flying and explosion going off and all that. So, all of us, we knew it was Hill 25, that was being attacked.
Maybe for a second, maybe they tripped an ambush or something?
No.
You knew right away,
It was too big, yeah, right. There's mortars dropping. Too much, too much, it was too loud and too much happening, and you could see tracers flying back and forth and all that.
So at this point, is everybody getting out of their hooches and going over and looking?
Oh yeah, right, right. So we're all gathering up on the hill, and then he says, and then of course, by that time it was on the radio going there. They say Hill 25 is being attacked. So obviously we always we thought immediately, we got to go help them. One of our platoon, and not only that, they, you just it was just natural, that we're gonna go to us. We're gonna go get help
So you're
them
just
out.
throwing your gear on. You're throwing
Yeah,
your
right.
flak on.
We've got a flak
You're putting
jacket.
mags in pouches.
Yeah, okay, as much ammunition we could carry, grenades, loaded down, flak jackets, and we're standing on top of the hill, just waiting for the word to go, and nothing happens, because I'm waiting for the word to come, because I'm one of the squad leaders by that time, and I was waiting for the word to come down that, we're going out the front door, or we're going down, which it was a matter of which gate are we going to go out, the one out by Leech Pond or out in the front right there. And then the word came down. They said, everybody back to your hooches and to your fighting hose, and everybody get into your fighting hose, or hooches. And we're going, what the fuck are you talking about? It says, fuck, so we went back to our hooches, and we're standing there, and everybody's still in their fighting gear because we're expecting to go, and we see this whole thing going off, Well, the company commander, I think, figured out what the hell was going on, and that's why he. My thinking is, I think he anticipated that there was going to that. Probably the same thing in terms of it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Why are they hitting us at 1 o'clock? Captain never explained himself in regards to it. He just told. We were told by the other sergeants or NCOs, staff NCOs, and platoon commanders, get back into our holes and all that. So I mean, I wasn't by a radio, so I didn't really know what was going on. All I could see was just explosions and tracers and grenades going off, and then Puff comes in, and then
Describe what Puff the Magic Dragon is.
yeah, right, and he's just firing down
Shooting
five machine guns.
7.62,
Yeah, five. This is a five.
5-barrel minigun.
Yeah, and and every fifth round's a tracer, and it's a C-130, I guess, with a And so what happened is that, but they're shooting. First, they shoot around the hill outside, the perimeters of the hill. Then they start shooting into the rice paddy or the area that was between the Hill 25 and then the Charlie's Ridge. In that area where they were, I guess, obviously they were running back to Charlie's Ridge. So that and the it was unbelievable. No, they call it Puff of the Magic Dragon. You ever see something like that? It's unbelievable. When they fire, it has this tremendous roar that comes out of it, and all you see is a red line going right down toward. It's like a roar, it goes rah, like that, and then all you see is one red line coming down there, and it doesn't come straight. It's kind of like because the plane is moving, and so what happened is and it's just covering that whole area down. It is one scary sight, I'll tell you that. It's a so that and so that I don't know what time that lasted until maybe I don't know. I don't know if anybody got any sleep because after Puff starts kicking ass, then it quiets down. There's no more fighting or explosions or tracers flying back and forth. I don't know how long that went on before Puff came out. That would have been after they got a boat and called artillery on them. When Puff was working that area between Hill 25 and to Charlie's Ridge, which is I think about a mile, to reach Charlie's Ridge. So, and then we stayed on watch. Nobody slept, obviously. And so the next morning, so what happened was that we went down the red line, almost like what you call an envelopment
Yeah.
type of thing on 25, and that's when, we come across, positions, machine guns right on the road that was dug in. So what happened is that, on the entrance, they have block off the entrance, and then the only other way you can come into Hill 25 was coming in from the side there, and they had fighting holes or dug in positions around there. Facing 52, so that's how we knew that they had prepared for us coming down to help them.
Right. Which is sound too, if you think about it, right?
Right. So, but we were, and I guess it wasn't our job wasn't a question why ours had do or die. So none of us would thought this whole thing through. Which obviously that's why you have officers or company commanders
And
who
that's why
think
I
that
say
through.
he's somewhat vindicated at the end, because though he's not explaining himself to the
Right.
troops, his
It-
decision probably
Save.
saved a lot of lives.
Right.
And a hasty commander may have just said, "Saddle up, boys, let's go."
Right, that would have been the easiest decision and the quickest decision to make. Like saddle up one platoon and go. And leave either leave either a squad or a platoon behind. Behind Guard Hill 52.
And you
But
have
see,
a
we didn't think about that in
and
terms
you
of
have
Hit
a
52
popular
thing.
force platoon at the bottom of your hill, don't you?
Yeah, uh-huh.
So this is the equivalent of South Vietnamese National Guardsmen who live in the villages
Right.
and will defend them from NVA encroachment.
Right.
What are they doing?
I don't
Same
know.
as you guys, hunkered down, just
I guess so.
helping the Viet Cong
Maybe,
set booby
or
traps.
maybe they may have just disappeared. We never depended on them or worked with them.
They were just there.
They were just there. We didn't depend on them, and so it was only this. It was only after, I think, quite a period of time before, I started. I thought this whole thing through. In terms of what, based upon what we hear, and then it's like 1 o'clock. That doesn't sound right. The attack always usually about 4.
And like you said before, it wasn't just one or two gun positions set up from the avenue that you guys would have approached from. It was,
Yeah.
you think, like platoon or company size elements waiting for you?
I
I mean,
think at
really
least
substantial.
a size platoon size, or maybe 2 platoons. That were waiting. I mean, they attacked with 200. That's the ones that attacked the hill. There were others that were just
Enveloping it,
right. Right.
hammering it.
Yeah, right. The blocking force. To do that, they would actually having me shoot from the either right underneath it, or they were shooting from the base of the hill upward like that.
Especially if the hill's enveloped, you could shoot it
Right.
at all angles.
Right, exactly. And plus the other thing too is they knew that it was safe for them to shoot because none of their soldiers was going to be up there in a tower.
And how many? This isn't a company of men. This is one platoon that's on Hill 25 that's being attacked by
Correct.
an elite NVA sapper
Right. Unit.
company.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
happens when you get to Hill 25?
When afterwards when we get up there, I mean it's just bodies everywhere. I mean it was just really a mess because they just blew up. Their bunkers were blown down, and it was just. By that time, they had already medevaced all the dead and the wounded, and the other guys who were making it was just they were just not shell shock. I wouldn't say that. It was just like they had just come out of a ringer.
1/3 of the men are dead. 1/3 of the men are wounded and medevaced. That leaves 1/3 of the hill
left.
survivors.
That's right. And so we're ordered to take over the hill, relieve the second platoon of the from the hill. So we took over the hill there, and then so we had everybody's really nervous now, because and what happens there is that we have to rebuild all the blown down bunkers and rebuild the trenches and stuff like that. I know that we were it was I think we were on there for 2 weeks, and it was just it was a nightmare because
So you're there for 2 weeks because second platoon's decimated. They don't have the bodies
right,
to stay out
exactly.
there. Okay.
Yeah, right. So so we're there with I think about maybe 35. So we have about 35 Marines or something like that. It was three squads and a machine gun squad. 3 platoons. So we had and it was just God. It was, at 5 o'clock, we'd be starting to work to rebuild the hill at 5 o'clock, which is the sun comes up, and we would work rebuild all day until it got dark. Then we had to go out on hole watch, but we didn't have that many. We didn't have enough guys, so it was only 2 person per foxhole for a fighting hole, so to speak. And so, everybody's just exhausted, starting to fall asleep and waiting, but scared to death that the enemies are going to come, because we knew that
you're digging all day and filling sandbags. You're just exhausted.
Right.
And then you're on 50% watch every night?
Every night, right. So, if you're talking about it's kind of like, because you're on 50% watch, then you go like, one person sleeps, and one person's up from 10 to 2, and then you change, and the other person sleep until 2, and then what happens until
it's torture.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, you never get a full rest because, everybody's, on edge in regards to what's going on. And then add to that was the bodies of all the the dead NVAs. They had piled it up right toward the entrance of the Hill 25 where you come up. It's right there, and it was right in front of my squad's area. 100 feet, 150 feet, yeah. The smell, of decaying bodies.
And these aren't just a few bodies. These are all the Viet Cong that were left on your hill.
Right. It must have been, they were stacked right on top of each other. They were turning black. I mean, you couldn't count them because they were all on top of each other and were right in front of the foxhole that I was with one of my guys. We were right in front. It was right in front of me. I could look down there, and then the smell, the smell permeated the whole hill. I mean, you could smell it at night, really smell it. Then during the day, you would smell it. I mean, it's not cool. And so I started complaining about the smell, and they would say, hey, this is just not good. I mean, not good for morale, and it's not, and you can't sleep. It's kind of like the smell is always there, 24 hours a day. So somehow along the line, they brought out a caterpillar, just
like a bulldozer.
Yeah, kind of like a bulldozer.
Would that take a whole patrol from some base to walk them out there, or they just drive out with a couple?
I think they probably came out with a platoon from Hill 65, Motor T, that would be driving the bulldozers and tearing down things. So it would have been Motor T. We didn't have CBs on the hill that I know of. So they came. So they must have come out with a with probably a platoon of Marines, as security. And then I saw the bulldozer, and he's just going right in there, and all the bodies are falling apart.
It's
and all
just
that.
sludge at that point.
Oh right, yes. And and I just walked to the other side of the hill to get away from the sight and try to get away from the smell.
See if one of those Motor T guys has a sailing for you.
Oh yeah, hey, yeah, right. I felt sorry for the bulldozer driver. Who was right there. I mean, that dead bodies were there for at least a week, I think. And then at some point in time, they sent out, the bulldozer, and then, after we were, working, rebuilding the hill and getting it squared away, then the word comes down, that we're leaving the hill. Pack all your stuff. We're leaving the hill. He goes, well, who's going to relieve us? And he goes, no, we're abandoning the hill.
Did you guys get to break shit and blow stuff up, or what?
Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, just break things up, chop up the, sandbags and all that.
But in the back of your mind, you're like, in a week they're gonna have us come back out here and rebuild this.
That might be true too.
You know how the Marine
it's kind of like, yeah, right, hurry up. But the other thing too is like if there was any leftover woods or something like that,
I'm assuming after you guys cleared off, they called in an artillery mission on the hill just to make sure that it was done.
No,
No?
not like that. No, just because what happens, a lot of the civilians, from the village below there, there's a village below there, right, it's close by. They were up there, scavenging, taking in whatever they could get.
You would just think that all the things up there that could be used to blow up Marines in the future, if it doesn't get burned or blown up.
Right. But they were, but you had kids and you had mom,
who knows, that can that was used to blow up Vasquez a month later could have been a can that was scrounged from that hill.
True, absolutely, right. And from sea rations, yeah, that's right, because what happens, you put them in what they call the garbage dump right there, and it's got, got all, all the sea ration cans, because that's all we ate was sea rations.
So Hill 25 was pretty much a major event, and it led up to, let's say, 60, 90 days before Tet Offensive kicks off.
Yeah, not even that would have been
January 31st.
January 31st, correct. But in our TAOR, it kicked off on the 30th.
Yes,
one day earlier.
So there were some kicking off early, right? So how did you find out about the Tet Offensive?
About the Tet Offensive?
How did you find, it kicked off a little bit early, but how are you aware of that?
Well, during the month of January, we always ran, like I told you, we ran day patrols and night ambushes and all that. We had, during January, there were more than one ambushes kicking off. Sometimes there were nights where there would be 2 or 3 ambushes that would be kicking off, which, that was just almost unheard of before.
And what is that telling you?
There's a large movement going across that area right there because they're hitting 3 different areas in terms of crossing in 3 different areas where the ambushes are, and the ambushes are not all closely clustered together.
And they're not everywhere.
They're not. No, right. We were pretty successful in ambushes. I don't know how if first platoon took any casualties or second platoon, but I know that we didn't lose anybody during that time. So we knew something big was happening because there was all these ambushes were kicking off. It was like 1 a night, and then sometimes it was 2 a night. Occasionally it was 3, which was, but even 1 ambush was really unusual. And of course, they would not engage us because their purpose was just try to get
to run the gauntlet.
Right, run the gauntlet and get. And a lot of them were actually, as I understand it, these were just new soldiers just came from Hanoi, and so they weren't seasoned. So when we hit them, and they never fought back. Most of the time, they just ran. They just disappeared. And then so in the middle of the night, it's not a good idea to go chasing after them. because you don't know what the hell what is waiting for you there.
Right.
You know.
You've seen that lesson before.
Right. Exactly. You know. And so what happens is that, you know, just so they didn't. So they didn't. Well, most of the time they didn't fight. That's what, and most of the time they just, and when we kicked off the ambush, they just disappeared. Now, we who was on the ground had no idea what the hell was going on elsewhere or anything like that. We didn't know ahead of time there was going to be a big Tet offensive. All we were told was that there was going to be, it was going to be New Year's and they were going to be standing down and all that. But, as usual, they'll probably break the word, and so be ready for it. So, when all those ambushes was kicking off on January, we all thought something big is going to happen here. Something big is going to happen. And that's, we still didn't know what was going on until they just took us off the hill. And as I understand it from talking at the reunion with one of the, there was a guy that was the intelligence officer back in 55, and he said that what happened is that they had a Green Beret team had spotted a large group of NVAs, and they said it was just a huge army of NVAs that was coming down the mountain.
Because they're staging for the major attack, which is the Tet offensive.
Right, but they're heading in the direction of Hill 52. It was that night they took us off the hill. It was real sudden.
You've been living there, so you grab all of your stuff that you got that you can carry, right?
That you can carry, yeah. I mean, they said, because we didn't have anything to pack in. We didn't have any sea bags or anything like that. They were blowing, the ammo dumps and things like that. Whether, where we had ammunition stored and all that.
So, and for some historical background, now the Vietnamese are doing the all-out offensive, trying to spark a general uprising that ends up failing. But in the meantime, it's all-out war in all the major cities in Vietnam. Units that are in your area, like the 5th Marines, are being pulled up north. You guys are holding the position in your TAOR, which is like the Arizona, Dodge City area. 13 days into the Tet offensive is when you have described like a formative day in your time in Vietnam.
It was, we had, I think that was after we came back from a down chop, right? I don't remember if that was when Rossi got, when the choppers fired on us. We were assigned to be the reaction force, the company reaction force. We were on reaction until it was either late March or early April. And in this area it was in Dodge City, and so
And Dodge City is midway between where you've been operating at Hill 52 and Da Nang, the major base. Yeah.
Correct, right. I think what happened, we got hella lifted into Hill 55. And then what happens then is that the next day they said, they told us to saddle up and we're going out to get a down chopper, protective down chopper until they came in and got it. It was in Dodge City, so we went out there, and we relieved a squad from Kilo Company that was there, and so we had the entire company that was out there, and there was a down Huey, and so, but the other thing too is we became aware of that the enemies were all in the tree lines also. The NVAs were in the tree lines, are all around us.
Are they the ones that shot the Huey down?
Yeah, I guess so, because what happens that, they start bringing in jets, and that was pounding and they were pounding that. They were dropping 500-pound bombs, 250, and then they fired rockets, and then afterward they came in with a 20 millimeter, firing away. I mean,
Were they dropping nape too, or?
yeah, right, exactly. I mean, we have no idea who the hell's over there, what's going on, but
Somebody's
they throw,
getting some heavy.
yeah, right. They're throwing a lot of heavy stuff in that area, and then what happens? We know that, they said there's NBAs over there and there's NBAs over here, which is on this other side. It's tree line right there. That was where this Huey came in on, So what we did is we had dug in, in regards to Rossi was with Chuck Hill, the first fire team leader at that time, and I was with Tony Camacho, and we were walking around checking the perimeters, and checking the fighting holes and all that. And then we could hear the chopper coming in. It was a Huey, So we're looking at it, oh wow, Then it came. I was watching, and then it just come around like this, and then all of a sudden it just went like this, just went going down. We go, holy fuck, he's shooting at us, And I saw him. I saw the rockets go right into where Chuck Hill's position was over there, which was at that time maybe 20 yards from me or something like that. It wasn't that far away. And
So 20 yards away from you, 60 feet, are two of your Marines from your squad.
there's 3 Marines.
They're in a fighting hole.
They're in the fighting hole,
And
yeah.
an American helicopter just came in on the attack and loosed rockets onto them.
Yep.
And what did you see?
So all I saw was just explosion. When that happened, I said, I just said, they're killing my men. I ran up toward the company there. I said, get them off. They're killing my men. Then the radio man there, said, I'm trying. So then I ran back toward Chuck Hill's position to find out how they were, because I thought they were dead. Because it was a direct hit. And I thought they would be dead. And
Man. As you're approaching, are you just dreading that approach?
Oh, absolutely. And then as I'm running toward there, I guess the chopper opens up on me, and there's with machine guns, and I see bullets flying across me,
He sees an enemy in the open, which
Right,
is you.
exactly. It's me running,
And he's firing on you.
And he's firing on me, luckily it wasn't with those mini guns that they have. I was firing with a M60 machine gun. I think that's what it was. Anyway, I wasn't paying too much attention on that because I was focused on getting over to where Chuck is. Chuck was the one who told me. He goes, because he saw me running toward them, and then he says, "Oh, some bullets, machine gun bullets, goes flying by you." I really, wasn't aware of that. Because I was just focused on, because I said, they're dead, I said, my God, I said, 3 of my men, 3 of my Marines have just died, by friendly fire. And I get over there, and I see, Chuck Hill, he's standing up on his fox in his fighting hole, and then there's there's the other guy that's, I don't remember what his name. And then he told me, because I could hear someone screaming in pain, And then so Chuck told me, he says, Rossi got hit, They chopped off his foot or something like that, or they hit him. He goes, he got hit in the back, I went down there. They had the corpsmen were down there. Everybody was down there taking care of him, He didn't need my help.
He's been amputated from one of his legs or one of his feet.
I think, as I understand, he got one of his leg got amputated. Now, how far up, I don't know. What I saw was when they had him in a stretcher and they're taking him to medevac choppers. And I think they had him sedated by that time. You kind of have become numb to death in regards to it, and I just, I I knew that, I said, holy Christ, they fired on us, then the NVAs, which was across from us.
Oh yeah, they're still there.
They're still
firing.
there, and they may pull an attack at that point in time, knowing, because they could see what happened,
Yeah.
They where the choppers, and they knew they fired
They're
into our
happy as
position.
hell.
Oh yeah, so I was busy running around, to straighten out the line to make sure the position got covered, in regards to, because we were in that.
How long had Henry been with you? Was he a new replacement or?
Yeah, he came with me. He was probably just in the early part of January. Henry, as I understand it, what happened is that they had just gotten back from the stockade in Japan. I mean, from Da Nang, because they caught him smoking dope.
Yeah.
So you got to get something like this. So I
What do
guess
you get for that? Like 3 months in the stockade?
I don't know. He wasn't there when I got there, and they told me that.
He had already been assigned there.
Yeah, right. And then what happens? They send him to the stockade, And so, when he joined up with me, it was first part of January, early part of January, because it was after Operation Citrus, and then I think it was Chuck that told me that Rossi got busted for marijuana. So what happens then is that we get taken out of that, out of there. I don't remember if they took us out by chopper or we walked back, or we walked through Dodge City all the way back to Hill 55. Then from Hill 55, we're the next day or whatever, we're helicopter out and then have no idea where the hell this is, where we go out to. We're just following, the Marine in front of us, and then when we get there, they show us a map and our platoon commander, this is where we're at, So okay, this, only thing we're concerned about is what's around us anyway, So, and so what happened is we sent out patrols. Max went out. His patrol went out on the 12th. He was out on. And then when he came back in, they had captured 3 NBA nurses, as captive and brought them back.
Really?
Yeah.
So they had some sort of aid station for
right, exactly.
the attack in your area.
Right, exactly. So they tell me next day, go out to that area and check it out. I mean, that's Governor Bolton's would have told you, you're fucking crazy. You never go out to the same place twice. You don't hit the same place twice, for exactly the very reason.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, for the very reason that, what happened, because of what happened.
So you have a patrol that went out the day before, captured 3 enemy nurses.
3 nurses, right, NBA nurses. That's McCross's squad took that.
And you're told, take your squad
right
back to that spot.
Back to where McCross.
For what? To see if there's more people?
Yeah, right, and check it out.
But the whole company is also nearby?
Well, no, the company is, we have a kind of a base, we just.
So you have a cordon, and you're almost like the recon of that area?
Basically. Yeah, right, But I go out with a machine gun. Hickel was carrying the machine gun with me then. And so what happens is that he, there's a base camp. We just, I don't know, captain picked the area, so we just threw a 360 around it, and then from there we got sent out onto, patrols, so I guess they were, I don't know, they sent, I was told to go out there to that area, and the way that I was supposed to get out there was, to go, I had with me Max Point Man. That was the day before, so he would know where we were.
So he's like your guide. Mm-hmm. The rest of the company is
staying back right there,
staged, waiting for your report.
Right, exactly. I don't know what the heck they were thinking, but and the way that they handled it sounded more like they were they thought it was just a small force or something like that, because
Or an aid station, maybe.
right, exactly, or a hospital, whatever, so it wouldn't be a big force around there.
What's the terrain like?
Just like where we were at right there was just kind of like fields, elephant grass. On the way headed out there, I remember we stopped at, there was a village there, so we were checking out the village. And then from the village we left, and then we walked down the path and turned left and went up there. Now Spaulding, who was the point man then, was leading us there. All of a sudden, here bursts of gunfire, So and so I go running up toward the front there, and Spaulding standing back there, and he's changing magazine, and he says, "There's about 12 of them up there," So I go charging up there. He was my point man.
He was your point man.
Right, exactly. And then it was on the trail, so I run up the trail right there, and then right in front, right in front of us, just like a big, oh gosh, it was, anyway, you couldn't, it was big bushes or trees, and like a forest was right in front of us, going up the trail, and we hit something like a forest.
So is it like a stand of trees?
Yeah, right,
Okay.
exactly like that. So what happens is that, and when we do that, we were running up the hill, and this bullets flying by me, flying over the top of me right here, and the trees that were up there, branches are falling down on us and everything like that, and so from the trajectory, I just guessed that they were probably in the ground, which means they were dug in, So what I did is I got up to the edge of where the tree line started, and I deployed Chuck Hill's fire team to the left, Paul's fire team to the right, and and then I had to,
As your flankers?
yeah, and then my second fire team was with me, and the machine guns. Yeah, just this hill to the left. Take the left flank. Guatemala take the right flank. And so they just they, because they and I assume that they know we're supposed to stay tied up. I mean,
Right.
hang.
If I'm on the right, everyone else is on my left. And if
Yeah,
I'm
right,
on the left,
exactly.
everyone else is on my right.
Right, exactly, right.
Don't get wrapped up.
Right.
I don't want anybody peeling around us, basically, is what their job is, right?
Right, exactly. I do not want to be, anybody turning the corner on me, and so, and then what happens? I hear a burst of gunfire from my left, right there. And then I hear Corman up. So Doc Butler, who's saying, runs in over to that side right there. Disappears from sight because of all the bushes and all that. And then so I'm thinking. My thinking now is what do we do next? I decided we're gonna attack forward. In there, because they're down in their dirt, and they obviously didn't see us because they were shooting over me, so from the trajectory. So what they probably did was they probably were hanging around out front there, off the trail, when they were spotted by Spaulding, and he opened up on them, and so they knew we were there. And so what happens is that they just started firing down the trail there.
And everything you've just described, minutes, seconds have gone by before you're like, we should push this ambush. We should. It was a tactic you described earlier, where if you have a few seconds in an
To make
ambush
the
to make the
decision,
decision, and generally you want to attack the ambush.
Right. Right.
So is that what you're thinking right
That's
now?
what I'm thinking right now. And I was and I was just about ready to call out the orders to Paul and Chuck and the guy and on because online throw grenades, forward and front right there. It's kind of like a recon by fire type of thing. Get ready to charge forward, And just then I hear Doc Butler says, I need a medevac, And then he says, Jerry, he said, Baxton's gonna die if we don't get him out of here. He's gonna die if you don't get him a medevac, So then I was thinking, then it flashed through my mind, what should I do? I could come back later, make the attack, come back later and get Blackston out, or I should just get him out now. And I was thinking more important is my life, his life, my men, It's not killing the enemy as much as it's just trying to save his life. And if he's going to die, we don't get him a chopper. Means what happens that, it's immediate. I can't be waiting for for a battle, for a firefight to end before you get a medevac. So I called for them to pull back. First Guatemala squad to pull back. Fire team pull back, and then Chuck Hill that with Blackston carrying Blackston pulls up behind him. And then myself and my second fire team were holding the front there, and then I had them the second fire team back, and then a machine gun up front. And so Hickel was up with a machine gun on there, and then and I was behind him as we start pulling back, And then he just Hickel, all this time, there's they're shooting at us, but it looks obvious they don't know exactly where we're at. But Hickel jumps up, stands up with his M60 machine gun, and starts firing right down there. He just, I go, Hickel, get your ass down here, The firing from that side, from the other side stops, because Hickel's he's just firing away. I could see the bullets flying by him, and, and one bullet hits him right in the leg and splits open. I saw his utility just split open, and blood come right down. I said, so... I said,
That's pretty ballsy.
I know. I said, Hickel, get down, And he says, give me a grenade, Give him a grenade.
So right now he's in the zone.
Right, he's in the zone right now, man. He's gonna kill them all, He just pulls, runs forward and throws a grenade, in there, and it explodes. And then that's when I jump up, because now the firing stopped, and and so I jump up and I grab Hickel. I said, "Let's go back, back up, And then we start backing down the trail, And meanwhile, the rest of the squad had now just moved down in a line down there, and I told him. I told Chuck, get us to a spot where we can get in.
So you're asking your other two fire teams to leapfrog or cover and move? Is that how you're doing it?
Right, they're with each other, going down, pulling out, like in a column, right, huh? Right, in a column, and then I told Chuck, get us to where we can get in choppers, So Hickel and I were the last guys coming down the trail, and then when we get out of the trail, I run back up toward the front to find out where we're going, and kind of like we go to, and it's kind of like there was all bamboo and everything like that was right, and so I thought that'd be there was an area where there was a wide open area where we could bring a chopper in. Now, at this time, I'm still thinking it's nothing more than a squad. And now that, we've opened up on them, they were opening up on us, they are gone.
They're going to DD.
That's right. My thinking was we'll get Blackston on the chopper. We're going to go back in and get them.
Is your platoon not making their way up towards you guys? How far away?
No, they're still back in the base camp. We're out there by ourselves.
They're not hearing this?
I'm sure they hear it.
They're not hearing medevac, all that stuff?
Yeah, but...
how far away is this base camp from you? Are we talking like a couple football fields or like cliques?
Oh, we're talking about clicks.
Jeez.
Maybe I think 3 clicks, 4 clicks.
4,000 meters away.
Right, exactly. It wasn't. It
2
wasn't,
miles, roughly.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Jesus.
You know,
That's
so-
a long way to be without
Yeah.
the cavalry.
Well, that's a. Well, you know, then what happens then is, you know, so I said call in the medevac. I string out the guys in a 360-degree. Then all of a sudden, you know, see mortars start exploding around us. You know, I'm going, holy shit. You know?
Now, is it loud enough that you can't hear the thunk of them being fired, or can you?
I could hear them. You know, I could hear thump like that. You know, in fact, master, you could even see them. They were that close. You know, we could see it coming out of the barrel. You know.
So just over this tree line where you think you might have just run into a small patrol, you're seeing mortar rounds come out.
That's right, and we have stopped right in front of where the mortar's located. They're in the bushes. We're in the bushes. There's a clear path right in between us. They're on the other side there, and we're
So
on this
there's
side.
a field and 2 tree lines, them and you.
Right. Yep. Right. And then so they just start, and when they start hitting us with mortars is when I told our radio man, you know, we better get us some reinforcement out here, you know. And so I think that's probably when they called in to, you know, and asked for reaction a squad, and they sent out McCross's squad because they had been here, you know. You know, right now I'm thinking about it, it seemed like it's just like minutes, but it wasn't also hours, because I can remember just, you know, standing there and just and then knowing that we're surrounded and we're getting hit by mortars, and you know, I remember, you know, that, you know, that was when I think, and that was when I really accepted the fact that I'm not going to make it out of here, you know, that this is. And it's really kind of funny, you know, when you accept death, it's kind of like, it's like, you know, a second becomes like a minute becomes like an hour. It's like you can hear everything, you can see everything, everything's like really, your senses are just kind of really enhanced and all that. And I'm not afraid, you know, I can think very clearly, you know. You know, during that time when they were hitting us with the mortars on both sides, and they're exploding, but luckily they're not exploding right on our position. You know, they're landing around the position, but that's where, remember I told you that, you know, my radio men, you know, there was a bird dog in the area, and they heard about us, and they came over, and so they brought in jets on there. Well,
so you guys got on the net for a medevac. A bird dog in the area probably hears that medevac call, goes, they got something going on. He goes to investigate, and now he can bring air to bear. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, right. That's because I can remember the bird dog Cessna in the area, right? They're circling, you know, and I must have talked to him too, or something like that, and he probably, I think she told me they were bringing air support in, you know, and then but I knew their call sign was Gunsmoke, you know, so something, you know, I don't know how I know that, you know, so you know, so they came in, dropping in, but before that happened. Before that happened, and it's not clear to me, it was just before or after, but, you know, they picked up on probably the whip antenna that we had, used specifically for, you know, for contacting.
And now the enemy across the field sees probably this whip antenna.
Well, I didn't know that. But when he dropped the mortar right on top of us, yeah, I knew that.
That's
you know?
an aiming stake.
Right, exactly, and that was where, you know, because you know, I was standing there and I don't know what I was doing, you know. Then I hear one of the guys goes, I see poof like that. I hear that, and then I could see the round go up in the air, and then somebody yelled, "It's coming for us!" You know. I go, holy shit. So I started running, we're all spreading out, running, and I must have gotten the furthest away, or I ran the fastest out of the way, because because I hit the ground and I'm down on the ground, hoping that I could crawl underneath my helmet when it just goes boom right where I was standing, because I had fallen, I had hit the ground and I was looking back like that. I'd see an explosion go off, So, and then you could hear and feel things flying through the air, of shrapnels, I could, kind of like whiz right over you like that. And then, so then I feel something like running down my leg, so I reach back there, to find out what the hell is it, because I thought maybe my canteen had gotten hit. Well, and then I came back and I had blood on my hand. What happened is I got hit by shrapnel in the butt. But at the same time, what I didn't realize, the shrapnel had also tore through my jungle utility, hit my helmet, and hit my pants. I mean, I don't know how I didn't get hit or anything like that, but I didn't realize it at that time. I just found this afterward, not at that point in time, but afterwards when I took off my helmet and said, "How the hell is this? This wasn't here before," So then I ran back there, and that's when I ran into. The corpsman was down. He was down on the ground. Doc Butler was down on the ground. My grenadier was down on the ground. My radio man was standing up. He was bleeding, and then that's when I saw Doc Butler, and he was just bleeding everywhere, blood everywhere, and I was thinking, I got to bandage him up, but it's like where, and so I'm asking him, Doc, where does it hurt the most, and that's when he tells me, whispers in my ear to save the bandage for the guys, Then at that time, then I went and check on Riley. Chuck was there, and I knew I had to check out and find out how was everybody else anyway. So Chuck was there, so told Chuck to take charge, about these guys, get them taken care of. And so
so he's going to work with the radio operator to get a helo in there for them.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then also, get them to a safe area, move them to a safe area. So, because they're out in the open now.
From where you are, that would be like what, pulling back another 50 meters or so?
Yeah, just pull them back into the tree line there, where they, where the other side couldn't see them. Then what they did then was that I went and checked on Blackston, and Blackston's face was all gray, and you've been around long enough, you can tell when death is approaching, is coming. You can see that in the person's face, and I knew he was going to die. His face was all gray, and he was still breathing. And then as I leaned down as I knelt down beside him, I could hear that death rattle.
The body fighting to breathe, just
right.
Going through the motions.
Right, and you could hear the death rattle, and I knew I knew he died at that moment, So I closed his eyes, and I said, "Fuck," But I said, I don't have time to grieve right now. I feel bad. I got to do something here, So the grenadier was down, so I took his M79 and
his feedback. That's your
exactly. It's going to see if I can knock out the mortar out.
All right.
The mortar.
Right now, you don't know, but your other platoon mates are kind of making their own way over.
Yeah, making their way, and probably probably may have gone past me already.
You call for air on a specific target. You have your map out, and you're like,
Right,
drop it here.
I drop it. Yeah, right, and that's the area where
You suspected the mortar. Or
the
you
mortar.
suspected
I suspected the mortars were in that area right there, and we'd drop it off. And he hit the tree line that was next to it, and that was across from it, And that's when I said, "Gunsmoke, damn it! You dropped it on the wrong tree line." I was screaming at him because I felt kind of frustrated because this guy's mortaring me. My guys are getting hit, and it's like we're so helpless out here. We need take that fucking mortar out, And it's just, so when he says you're 60 Victor Charlie headed your way, I think I got more problems just a mortar, Right, the negative Mike 3 Bravo. There's approximately 60 Victor Charlie headed your way,
And then you're like, okay, that's not a
Right.
fluke.
Right. I said, yeah, right. He says, it's right. I said, Roger, just keep them coming. There was a reason why he dropped it over there, and it was a good reason, because what happened is he was stopping, literally, maybe a couple.
That sounds like a company-sized flanking force coming your way.
Right. It did. That's what I thought. It was just. They tell me afterwards. Some of the guys who got medevac, tells me, she goes, "Damn," she goes, "They had us surrounded," and we, so anyway, I took the M79 there and try to put and start putting a couple rounds or several rounds into the area where I thought I saw it coming out of the tube there, doing an approximate. So I fired from one position several times, and I moved because I didn't want them zeroing in on me. So I moved, 10 yards and fire from another position.
Nice. And do you use the leaf sights on that thing?
No.
You're just guesstimating.
Because
right. You can lob one, and kind of like when you hit a golf ball, you can kind of see where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but it didn't have to go that far. It was just I just adjusted according to when you saw it when it went out, where it landed, and I was in that area, when the M79 was dropping, and then I don't know if I hit them, or as 79 hit them, or they just realized they've been spotted, so they pulled out, because there was no more. We didn't get any more mortars from that. It stopped. That mortar stopped firing at us. So I assume what they did is that I either dropped the M79 on them, or it was getting too close for comfort, and they just pulled out and just moved position, because after that I didn't have to worry about the mortars. So I have to be worried about coming, and then in the meantime, during that period of time, I remember calling in Jim Hastings' squad, with the lieutenant who had come in, with our platoon commander had come in with Hastings' squad, and calling his squad and asking and talking to the platoon commander and telling him that I need some help over here. I don't even know where they're at. I'm just in contact with them over the radios, and then I could hear Rick Johnson saying, "Hey," he goes, "we're pinned down here. We can't get to you. You're gonna have to try and hold out there.
So you went on a recon. You guys are hit hard. You've lost men. Now you're hearing on the radio that your other platoon members...
The other squads
other
platoon members, they're pinned down.
Are becoming pinned down. you know this is a much larger force than you had
Yeah,
anticipated.
right, because I don't even see them.
Your guys aren't even with you.
Right.
And they had been possibly miles away from you when they started making their way to you.
You know, so you know what happens then? It just start you know, rallying and pulling all the guys together. You know, and because the mortar wasn't out firing at us and they're coming toward us, I decided, you know, we got to move our guys to you know, to the wounded and whatever. We got to move them out of that area, and so what I did is I moved took the guys and moved them out toward where I thought Hastings squad was at, you know, because that was approximately, I knew somewhere in the area where we had originally walked down that trail. And I was right, you know, you know, so I got my squad guys, you know, into as providing security around the where the woundeds were, waiting for the choppers to come in. Then Chuck Hill and I ran, you know, because on the radio Lieutenant Johnson called for me, you know, so Chuck Hill and I went running up toward where Lieutenant Johnson was, and he was down at the edge. He was down at the end of the trail, right where you start going up the trail. He was down there, and all the
Your
all the
platoon
guys.
commander has now made it to where you basically first made contact.
Right, right, exactly. That's the first I see him, and you know, we had Marines were, you know, with just on both sides of the trail, you know, and laying down, you know, all along the trail, and Rick, you know, said, you know, see what you can do, you know. I mean, he goes, I think he told me Shaw was pinned down. I can't remember.
Whose squad was shot in?
Shaw was in McCrossan's squad. I knew that was third squad. I knew that was the third squad because I recognized the members of the guys.
But you didn't think McCrossan was there, right?
Right, because McCrossan was supposed to leave for R&R. And, you know, before I left the base, I said goodbye to him and told him, don't get the claps and all that. So
Because he was going to Bangkok?
yeah. So, you know, I just, and you know, and then was walking and I remember, today's February 13th, it's, you know, it's my younger brother's birthday. And I remember thinking that, you know. So, you know, just you know, and I was thinking to myself, you know, that I sure am glad Mac's not out here, you know, and that he's gone, you know. So, for whatever reason, I don't know if Rick told us to see what we could do or whatever, but Chuck and I ran up the trail, you know, toward the front.
So at this point, the whole platoon has responded to what initially started as an ambush.
Well, it originally started out just as a patrol for me to go out there and find out,
Yeah.
you know, what's out there, you know.
A recon investigation.
Yeah, right, more or less was a recon, you know. And you know, so now, you know, we've got the entire, well, not the entire the company, we got 2 platoons out there. And you know, so Lieutenant Johnson had told me to, you know, go up, see, do whatever can, or help out whatever I can, you know. So I ran up from side to side with Chuck behind me all the way up to the front, you know, and I was behind the machine gunner, who was Tony Camacho. He was one of the guys who along with Hastings and McCrossan, were going to try to run out there and get the guy, get Shaw, but Tony didn't get hit because what happened was Shaw was out there, and he was, you know, and they were shooting him to making him, scream, you know, and not to kill him, but just like shoot him to make him scream, you know.
And so you guys could hear him screaming.
Oh yeah, right. Because they knew that, they knew we would come, So they were just waiting for us to do that, and then, our guys, like Mac and Jim Hastings and Tony Camacho, these are some hardcore guys. I mean, and they're not going to, let another Marine get.
They're probably like the big brothers of the platoon,
right. Exactly.
So
I mean,
it's their responsibility.
And that was absolutely crazy and completely tactically wrong. You got 3 squad leaders. You got the two rifle squad leader, and you got the machine gun squad leader going out to try to rescue this guy.
Tactically wrong, but
right. You're leaving.
As a teammate, it's part of that principle.
Because they've all fought together. The Jim and Mac and Tony, they had been together, since DeSoto, so they knew each other. They were the guys that had been there the longest,
So they charge out there?
Yeah, they charge out there, and that's when, in the minute, and they didn't even get out. They just, when, and that's where Mac, his recklessness kind of got him in trouble there. I mean, ideally what happens, you would just throw smoke out there, and then go out and under cover of smoke because that's what they're doing, they're waiting for.
Have you guys practiced that before, moving in smoke?
Nope.
But it seemed logical after.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. It's kind of like learn on the spot. Well, they either didn't have smoke, and that may have happened because we've been out in the field for so long, so we weren't resupply or anything like that. So it's not unusual to run out of food, and and run out of grenade and run out of pop-ups, things like that. So
you realize afterwards that you could have used a lot of things that you didn't have.
That's right.
Right. Like something like that they started using at the end of the war, CS gas in this M79s to make them all take cover or hide.
Right, exactly. I mean,
that would have worked wonders there.
All we had with M79 was HE. It's just like Vasquez says. I mean, we never had it. I mean, we knew the Army had them. So sometimes we saw the Army, we tried to trade with them.
Yeah. And it wasn't until right then that the Marines even started using CS because they learned at Way City that drew the enemy out of the buildings. Mm-hmm. That was that same week.
Yeah. That was, right. So, the M79s there, was just, like you said, if we could, use that as smoke or even if you had a Willie Pete around, it got but that's a little dangerous, when you're
starting
throwing
fires, yeah.
Yeah, not only starting fire, but you could end up hurting whoever's wounded even worse, But what they did was, they were on the ground. They end up taking off their flak jackets and all that, took off all their bandoliers, gears, and all that.
Just to be quick and nimble.
Right, exactly. So they were down, and then and they came up out of the and the minute they came up, they got shot. Like Mac got shot right here. Bullet went through here, and came out in the back right here. And what happened is the only way that happened is when he got hit when he was coming up like this, and then Jim Hastings got shot in the arm, just blew his arm off,
Yeah, so it was basically hanging by a tendon.
Yeah, right. So he was. See, the thing is, I didn't see him. I didn't see him. I didn't see Mac because they had I'm not. Well, I may have run by them and
But you had just met up with the lieutenant, being told to head out there to see what they
find
need,
what's
right?
going on. Yeah, right. And
You don't even know Mac's there.
I don't even know Matt's there. I don't know I don't know what the hell happened. All nobody knew what.
Just another squad leader up right now.
Right, exactly. It was just basically squad leader up. So when I got, and I only found out. Well, Chuck Hill was behind me, and he said he saw, the second platoon squad leader was a black guy carrying Mac down the trail. He said,
What was his name?
I think it was Horse. He was second platoon squad leader. He's called Horse. He was one mean sucker. I mean, he was one tough hombre. Then we ran into him at the reunion. You wouldn't think it was the same guy, I mean, now, of course, he had been I think a janitor at a school, and he spoke real softly, and he was like a kind old man. He was
More docile than he was.
Right, he was one fear. I mean, that wasn't his real name. We just call him Horse because of the fact he was big and he was strong and he was tough. I mean, he was one mean guy too. Mean, him and Spare and what. And somebody, and they all had nicknames for their squad. Did Bolton tell you about that? I think there was one was Warlords, Dirty Dozen. I think Horse was the squad leader of Dirty Dozen because I remember seeing him, and I think and I think that squad they all carried machetes, so that kind of made him stay out. And then I can't remember what the third one was, but that's the name that Gunner Bolton gave them. So they're all very proud of that, So anyway, when I got up there, and I was right up toward the front, and then was Tony was down on the ground. He had the machine gun pointed down the trail, and so that was where they had gotten shot coming out of. So I was right at the head of the trail there, or the top where, and then out there, Shaw was laying out there, not very far away, maybe 10 yards, 10 feet. It wasn't that far away, But that was a killing zone between him from where we were. So I was laying behind Tony, and then the word came past the guys of the gear, the guys who got wounded's gear back. So Tony's where he's at is where Hastings and Mac and all that took out all their gears and all that. So he's laying down in front, and I'm right behind him. So he's passing back to me like this, So and then from here I'm passing it to Chuck Hill, who's behind me, all laying down in kind of like a little trench alongside of the trail. And then all of a sudden he passed back the helmet, and then I recognized the helmet because it was Max, and you could tell it was Max because he had the name of his daughter on there. Sharon was written on there, and then he had the black card spade, black a spade on there, and then he had his wife's name that was on there, So I knew that was his helmet, and I said to Mac, to Tony, I said, "Is Mac?" I said, "Is Mac out here?" And he goes, "Yeah, he got wasted." And I go, "Oh, shit, what?" That. But there's nothing you can do about it at that time. I mean, it's kind of like
And he thinks he's wasted because he just got shot in the upper chest and it blew out his back.
Right, exactly. I mean, and by that time they were being taken out to the for medevac.
And this is truly heroic. How they were rescued.
Right, exactly. That's where Spare was. Fact is, I think he was scheduled to leave in a couple of weeks or something like that. So he didn't have to be out there. It was, first of all, it wasn't his platoon that was up there, and second, it wasn't his guys that were being shot there. But he went up there, right? He was well respected, well thought of. He picked up, what I've been told, and I was told that he first picked up McCrossan, carried him back, and then I think probably gave him the horse to carry the rest away. He went back to get Jim, and picked Jim up, and then he was starting to head back down the trail, and that's when they got shot multiple times.
Right. Jim
And
said that the round that hit him went through him and into Spare's back.
Yeah, I just was.
And he just dropped, and they both dropped to the ground. I mean,
And then
a killing blow, basically, for
Right, and
Sergeant
that-
Spare.
and then Jim got hit, I think, like 3 or 4 times more in the leg. Now first he got his arm, but then he got hit in his leg. And if he's wearing shorts, you could see those scars that he's got from those bullet wounds. You
And
can see
just
that.
in recognition for Spare, men have done less and gotten the Medal of Honor, or at least the Navy Cross.
Right.
I mean, running out the end of your tour as a sergeant, saving 2 squad leaders, dying in the process of saving the second one. It's pretty...
Yeah, I know.
Pretty
It was
amazing.
it. So by that time, Spare was gone, Jim Hastings was gone, Mac was gone. It was me and Tony and Chuck and some other guys that were right up in the front there. Trying to decide how we were going to get Spare out. Because because now we knew that they were just waiting for that they could see. They obviously could see us, and we couldn't see them. And that's how they were able to shoot or hit Mac and Spare and Hastings. So we couldn't get up and we couldn't move out there. It was running toward. It was getting late, and light was going dark. It was getting dark, and then what happened then is, we crawled out when it got dark. We started crawling out on on the ground out toward where Shaw was. And I think it was 4 of us.
So you had to wait for the darkness to fall.
Yeah, right. By that time he was, Shaw was
And you
dead.
knew it was a recovery and not a
Right,
rescue.
we knew that right. We knew, because he stopped calling and screaming.
And it's been hours since he's been hit multiple times.
Yeah, right. I think probably when he got hit it must have been around 2:30, and by the time we got to him, I think it was probably about 5. So we crawled out there, and nobody shot at us, so and nothing happened, so they evidently they pulled out when it was dark. No contact, and pulled out. So we dragged Spare back, put him on poncho, and then kind of wrapped it up and cut down a branch, because choppers couldn't come in. It was either too dark or they didn't want to or whatever, because Jim, I think, and Spare and McCrossan were on the last chopper out of there.
So
And that was still daylight then.
Spare, McCrossan, and
Hastings.
are all at this point still alive. They've been rescued from the battlefield, and
Right.
they've gotten the last chopper out of there.
Right. And then according to Jim, Spare dies.
On the chopper,
on the
Spare
chopper.
dies
Yeah.
lying next to Jim and McCrossan. You guys are out in the field rescuing Shaw's body.
Trying to get, yeah. And so, then what we did was we went back to our base camp, walked 2 miles or whatever, so we carried him out of the bush, back to
So you create
the
a litter
base.
with a poncho and a pole,
Yeah,
basically.
that's what we did. We had a poncho, wrapped him up in a poncho, Didn't want the guys to see him because, he got shot up with holes, and, it just...
The dignity of it. Too.
Right,
Just,
just
you know,
exactly. And just and so, so we carried him back, and when we got back to where our base camp was, then started checking out, trying to find out what happened, who's alive, who's been injured and all that. And that's when I got examined by the corpsman, because I was bleeding from the flesh wound in my butt, and the corpsman said, he goes, "We need to medevac you, get you out on a chopper." And I said, "What for?" He said, "You could." He said, "You can get this infected, and it'll be really bad." He goes, "All I can do is just put a Band-Aid on it now, but you need to be looked at and make sure it doesn't get infected, because here I got a hole in my jungle utilities pants where I got wounded because it got slashed open by the shrapnel, and I told him I'm not leaving. Rick Johnson, the platoon commander, said, you gotta leave. I said, "Lieutenant," I said, I can't leave, because what happened, we've lost 2 of the squad leaders. I'm now the senior squad leader. I mean, and we're right in the middle of this shit, middle of this offensive going on. Then,
Right. The backdrop of this is, as far as you know, and the Marines for the past 2 weeks, all hell has broken loose in Vietnam.
Right, exactly. And then
Way City has fallen. Khe Sanh is under siege.
Right, exactly. It says, and we have new guys. Not like Paul was. Paul has just gotten there. I mean, he got there in January, and here is November. Okay, but he didn't get out to the company until probably, if he was in Operation Citrus, it would have been December.
December, yeah.
Because when I first met him, it was in January.
I think what happened was they sent him to weapons for a month or 2.
Oh, really?
He said then he went to his rifle platoon.
Oh, okay. So, did
the company have its own weapons platoon or something like that?
No, we didn't have a weapons platoon. We had weapons squad. Every platoon has a weapons squad.
Oh, I think this was like weapons as in mortars.
And mortars, okay, yeah.
And I'm guessing that was just because, and what I heard was because 2nd Platoon's mortars were basically wiped out, they needed new replacements to replace mortars.
Correct, because he's an 0311 and not an 0351. The mortar was, they came through the side that was where the mortars were located.
And most of the mortarmen in Hill 25 were killed. Yeah.
Right, that's Amendola.
Navy Cross recipient.
Right, he was.
Bates.
Right, they were the mortar people. They were fighting off the NVAs as they were coming through, and they were trying to take the 60 mortars. And, that's what I was told. That they came through on the mortar, came through the mortar side. So anyway, I told Rick, I said, "Look, I'm okay, and we don't have any of the squad leaders here, I mean, so I said, and if it gets infected, I promise,
then I'll go.
I'll go. Right. I said, if it gets infected, I'll go, And he says, and then he realized that makes sense. I mean, we had lost, good, our some of our best guys, I mean, that we all depended on. And I was from the junior squad leader, I now became the senior squad leader,
And is this your second heart that you've received?
No, this is first.
This is your first Purple Heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so, but, and I remember telling Rick, said, it was embarrassing, actually, because what happens, you got Hastings got all shot up, McCross, they all got, Spear got killed, Shaw got killed. I mean, I'm back there, and then Rick Johnson says, he goes, "We need to put you in for a Purple Heart." and I was thinking, this is. I just felt really shame, you know. And I don't deserve this. Oh, this is a fucking flesh wound. These other guys just really got, you know.
It still counts.
Yeah, you know. But so you know, so Rick just went ahead and did it, you know, because that's how it ended up on my record. I didn't ask for it or anything like that, but when I got my DD 214, it was on there, you know. So I know Rick just made it a point to make sure, you know, that I got it because to me it was not a big thing, you know. But so from there, then after that is, you know, after that day, things start becoming very blurry for me. You know, see, that was on February 13th. We still ran reaction.
Right,
the
you're
rest
still
of
running
February,
around during
March,
Tet, yeah.
until April, because I remember we were down to maybe. Well, we were down to 50%, half of the company, and my squad. You know, I was down to 4 guys.
You guys are losing men pretty consistently during Tet, like a lot of other units, through these, a lot of attrition through these.
No, it's just, you know,
Constant contact with the enemy.
Right, exactly, because that's why you're the reaction force. Right. You're supposed to be the one that helps everybody else get out of trouble, which means whenever you get sent out, you're headed for a firefight. You know, you're guaranteed to be in a firefight.
And since you're bouncing around, you guys are jumping on oftentimes like CH-46s or the dual rotor helicopters.
Right. They're taking us in by the C-46. 34s. I never rode on a Huey, but you know,
the 34s
trucks.
Are the Jolly Greens, right, where the pilot sits kind of above everybody.
Yeah, right. It's 34. That's a Korean War, gas operated, loud, slow. You know. Yeah, but those pilots were really, really brave, man. Some of the ones, you know, I see try to come in and get us out. So, you know, when we're out there, you know, and I just saw, you know, when he came in. Then all of a sudden, holes started appearing right in front of, you know, right where the pilot was seated, and then then the chopper just kind of went sideways, and I guess the co-pilot picked it up. But you know, I'm sure the pilot got hit, you know, because there was a series of like machine gun holes.
Yeah,
right across.
And that was on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that's why. That's why they couldn't bring in any chopper for where I was originally, because it was too hot. So you know, so that's why we moved the LZ further back and more toward the
right. And for a lot of people that don't know, a helicopter at this time isn't, that metal you see is not like a thick piece of metal. Mm-hmm. It is the Coke can around the fuselage. It is aluminum Coke can thickness.
Right. Yeah, right.
To keep it light.
Mm-hmm. Right, you're absolutely correct.
That bullet is not being deflected whatsoever when it's going through those things, unless it hits a main part of that.
You know, no, I'm sure that pilot got hit because it was right in his, you know, the bullet holes I see, because it was right where he was seated. You know, and then right after the hose appeared, chopper went sideways, you know, like it went out of control, but it got picked back up. So that's why no more choppers came in where I was originally.
So, you know, that seems like a very significant and memorable day. Obviously, you're a squad leader, men that you've served with, and your buddies, your fellow fire team leaders. It was devastating for your company. You keep going on operations. Tet is still pretty much active all spring. Mm-hmm. As you guys drive out or eliminate something like 30,000 fighters in those few months.
Yeah, right. I know. I know. I mean, we, you know, during that time, you know, and they say we lost the war or we lost that during that time. We didn't. I mean, we paid a price. Yeah, a lot of guys were coming back dead, but hey, you know, so you know, after that, things just become real blurry for me because, in fact, it's like, you know, I can't even remember I mean, I can remember bits and pieces, but it's not like it was as clear as it was before the 13th. I don't know if it is, or I was just deliberately blanking out because it was, I guess that the number of deaths and destruction was just, I think may have been gotten to me. That's why I started using it to blank out. I remember us going to Anwa. I remember just one day them telling us we're going to Anwa, and I said, Jesus, I mean, that's, and I said, isn't that the Arizona territory?
And the Anwa would be the major combat outpost base for Southern I Corps, probably.
And I remember bits and pieces of that, because taking out guys out on, patrols. We went out on patrols there.
You ticked off one of your best friends?
Yeah. Oh, well, what happened is that, I was the squad leader, and then it came, and then the word came down from the lieutenant that, my squad had the LP, the listening post, and I needed to send out 3 guys from the squad, out in front of our lines, which means maybe, it could be anywhere depending upon 100, 500 yards out, and so there's the early alarm in case you have a force coming towards you.
The speed bump.
Right, exactly. Because we had taken a lot of casualties, I had a lot of new guys in my squad. I mean, there was, and I knew that they were inexperienced. So if I picked 3 guys, at most, it's kind of like they were all new guys, and if I sent them out there, I was afraid that they wouldn't know what to do in the event something happened, and so I had to make a decision. I was going to send out my first fire team leader, because obviously the reason why he was my first fire team leader is because he's the assistant squad leader, and he's one of the best guys that I have, considering he's the one who taught me almost a lot. And that's Chuck Hill, and so it's kind of like, but Chuck is scheduled to leave. Rotate out, I think, in 2 weeks or something like that. And he was in this last month, and so I had to steel myself and go tell Chuck that he was taking out the LP that night. And boy, he jumped up his phone. Chong, he said, what the fuck are you trying to do? You trying to kill me? He goes, I'm short. I'm getting short. And I said, all I said to him was, Chuck, get your gear together. Get whatever the 2 guys were, and then I walked out of the hooch, and I remember thinking to myself, if anything happens to him, I said, I'll never forgive myself, but it's kind of like, it's a decision that I made to try to be sure that the chances of them surviving will be a lot better with Chuck out there, because Chuck taught me, so I know Chuck, and he's fearless, and he'll make sure that they get back, I didn't know that about anybody else in the squad, as well as I knew Chuck, but happily nothing happened. He went out, and then he came back in. And in 1989, when we met in Grand Junction, Colorado, that was the first thing he said to me. He goes, Chong, I'm still pissed off at you, sending me out when I was short,
So from Anwa, you eventually go home from there, back to the world.
Right.
And you, like most guys, there's no internet, there's no real easy way to research, find out where people are, so you kind of lose contact with these guys for how long? Well,
see, the funny thing about it is you're with these guys and for months and all that. And all them is like their last name. I didn't know Vasquez's first name because everybody calls each other by their last name or by rank, and so we never took down addresses. So what happened is,
That's traditionally stuff in other wars you would do after the war when you're all headed home together, but you guys are all sent home separately. You have your own date of return.
Right.
So you're just sucked out of the war by yourself, thrown into this machine that flies you across the ocean and deposits you back at your home.
Right. Well, in this case, it deposited us at not Macer, Travis Air Force Base. And then from Travis Air Force Base, we took a taxi to Treasure Island, and there they told us, don't wear your Marine uniform off base, because it's Berkeley, and at this time it's the height, 68. It's the height of that protest.
You're gonna hurt feelings if you do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're going to get some hurt feelings, and not only that, and then you're going to get angry, and then, especially you're just coming back from especially when you come back from the war, you get really kind of sensitive about it. If somebody starts
being insensitive, because that's
right.
really what it was.
Exactly. So what happens? And then I met up with some, and then I met up with some of the guys that I was stationed with in Hawaii. And and the other thing too is you can always tell these guys who come out of Quezon, they have that red dust all over their uniform and all over their boots and all that, So that's that Quezon dirt,
It's like a brick red clay, right?
Yeah, right. And they're covering it, from head to toe, and so when we were in Vietnam and we see some of these guys coming off the choppers, because they're getting ready to rotate out. You knew they came from Vietnam, came from Quezon, and of course they were either the 26th Marines or the 9th Marines, and then the 9th Marines were famous in Vietnam as being the suicide 9th. Walking Dead, yeah. They're the guys.
Because of Cantien.
Not even Cantien, it was even before that.
Quezon.
Yeah.
Oh, because they were the first landing team, I believe, too, right?
I don't know about that.
Traditionally, they were kind of sent to places where bad luck hit them every time.
Exactly. Yeah, there was one that was called, I think, Operation Buffalo or something like that, where,
that was during Cantien, I believe.
Was it? No, it's Bravo Company. Nearly got completely wiped out.
That was the marketplace we were talking about earlier?
I think so, probably so, yeah. And, I mean,
and left for days.
Yeah.
Before they could recover them.
Right. Exactly. Right, because they got ambushed. They got sucked into an ambush, and so it's really nice seeing those guys, seeing that they made it through, because we had split up when when we hit Vietnam. And they went to the 3rd Marine Division, and I went to the 1st Marine Division, and so the first time I see them is at Treasure Island, and that was nice to know that they came back alive and found out, who got killed, and it was happy to see them, just alive.
Yes, and that's a good way, going back and seeing other guys you knew that went to combat when you went to combat. You can decompress with them a little bit. You can reminisce. You can talk.
Yeah.
Before you have to go home to the civilian world and.
Where nobody understands and nobody cares and nobody even want to hear.
Right. The world
right.
Outside of the world you were just living.
Right. That's what we call getting back to the world. Because you saw that. You saw that movie Hamburger Hill. You remember that little dialogue that I think that staff sergeant said about, they asked him, why you come back, because this was the second tour, and he was a staff sergeant, and he goes on this tirade or goes through this monologue, and it was so true. It was so, he just hit it, because when I watched that and I saw him go through the list, but he goes, everybody back home, they all love. He said they all love each other, except you.
That was really a heartfelt thing he says.
Yeah, right. Except
when
you.
He says, "Except you."
Yeah, right.
That was a great character.
They they love Ho Chi Minh, and you know, and they love
These fellas at
everybody
the
else.
top of the hill that were fighting. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Going back up up that hill. I thought that movie was the most realistic of all the Vietnam movies I've seen.
Yeah, not a big budget, so it didn't have like the look, the cinematography that would give it like a lot more credit than it deserves. But yeah, that was a good movie, and it really outlined the true fact that was a pointless meat grinder.
Yeah.
You send in the premier army infantry division in the world, the 101st, up this hill, losing hundreds and hundreds of great soldiers. You get to the top of the hill, you walk back down, and the enemy takes it the next day.
Yeah, right. And then on top of that, it was, you know, it was a dug in position. And notwithstanding the fact that also, you know, dropped I guess mortars or artillery round on friendly. There was a lot of friendly fire. There was the one where they almost got the top of the hill, and then you know, one of the choppers come down, and some guy firing the machine gun out of a chopper kills a bunch of the paratroopers, you know, that were up there. I mean, it was just absolutely horrible, you know.
Yeah, and something you've seen.
Yeah, I just
And,
got. I mean, it was really heartbreaking, you know. Just watch, you know. But you know, when he was saying about, you know, when he went through that monologue, yeah, right on. Whoever wrote that, you know, he did a good job. You know, he captured the essence of what was happening and how unfair it was. You know, I mean, you know, it's kind of I don't. You know, I don't know how bad this is. You know, when I came back, I don't know, was it bad that they completely ignored us, or they didn't want to hear what we had to say, or that you just couldn't share with anybody anything. I mean, I went to work for IBM, and nobody at IBM had gone, and they were all 4Fs. They all graduated from college, and they were all 4Fs.
Or exempt, because I'm sure IBM gave out government deferments, right?
Probably so, you know. I was the only combat veteran from Vietnam, you know. Nobody else had even gone to Vietnam, you know. So
you guys all had to like take your time, start your families, live your lives. It seems like it was like 20, 22 years before guys started getting together.
Correct. I guess it took that long to find, and also kind of start that healing process. You know, it's kind of like you needed the validation. You know, that, you know, it's just like, you know, when I, you know, in regards to when I was sharing with you that I just refought that battle, you know, 1,000 times, thinking what could I have done better and all that, you know. And when I met up with Mac, you know, I felt terrible because this was my best friend, you know. I mean, Mac was my best buddy, you know, and I couldn't find him and didn't know where he was until 1989, you know. Then when we finally got together and finally started talking, and we finally got around talking about the 13th, what happened there, and I shared with him how I felt, and he was shocked, you know, surprised, you know, and said, you know, why? He goes, this is the way he answered me. He was, Jerry, who were you in Vietnam? I said, I was a squad leader. He goes, what was the mission of a Marine Corps rifleman? Close with the enemy, destroy him, and destroy his will to fight. He goes, what were you doing out there on February 13th? Trying to close with the enemy, destroy him, and destroy his will to fight. And he goes, then you didn't do anything wrong. He goes, hey, listen, shit happens. You know, we're trying to kill them. They're trying to kill us. It wasn't like it wasn't like we get to kill them, but they don't get to kill us.
They get a vote.
Oh yeah, right. He says they just, you know, and they were pretty damn good at it, you know. So he says, no. He says, and then he says, as far as I'm concerned, if I had to do it all over again, knowing what happened to me, he says, I'd do it again. I have no regrets. And he said, and you should have no regrets. You know, you didn't, you did what you were supposed to do. You can't do anything more about that.
So from 1989 on, you guys stayed pretty tight, huh?
Yeah, we called each other every Thursday at 1:00. You know, 1 week he called me, the next week I would call him.
Who's 1:00? Your 1:00 or his 1:00?
It's my 1:00.
So his 4:00.
His is 4:00. You know, and then we went since 1990. Every year we went on vacation together somewhere. You know, I mean,
Including the Great Wall of China.
yeah, right.
And other places.
Every year until 2003, when that was when he passed away, just about 2 or 3 days before Christmas. And that one, that was really strange, because Carol had told me, he goes, because we knew Mac was sick because he had cancer. So he was sick, and I didn't really want to go back east to see him, because I just didn't want to remember him, as being sick, And when Carol said to me and said, she goes, if something happens to Mac and he dies, she goes, you'll never forgive yourself. I thought about that and said, she's right, so I did, So we flew back to Philadelphia, and then we went to Max. He lives in Marlton, New Jersey. And so we spent, I think, about 4 or 5 days together, And then the last day before I left, his wife and Carol, they went shopping, so they left. It was just Mac and me back at his house. And, so I was sitting there, and he was just sitting like you were, and then I could see that he's fighting to stay awake now. He's starting to fall asleep, and he's fighting to stay awake. And this is about what I think about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I don't know. I didn't think about it. I said, "Hey, Mac, it's all right." I said, I'll take the first watch. He looked at me, and then he smiled, and he said, just like the old days, huh, Jerry? And I said, yeah, Mac, just like the old days. We left the next day. That was a Friday. And his wife tells us that Mac went to bed that night, and he's never woke up after that. And she said, she goes, I think Mac was just waiting for you to come see him before he passed on, because he went to bed, and he went into a coma and never woke up from the coma, and passed away on early Monday morning. So they had the funeral, I think, a week later. So I flew back a week later to do the eulogy. It was it's heartbreaking. It's just because
any of your platoon show up there? Any of your other platoon mates?
No. Jim Hastings was there.
The 3 squad leaders.
Right. This is, Then there was other guys from my company, that were there also. And it was just, that was 2003, and I still miss him. Think about him a lot, because he was just so memorable. And the only thing is, I only knew him for from September, October, November, December, January. 5 months.
Well, maybe better than most people would know some of their best friends their whole lives in ways that they would never know their friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And depending on each other. And this all started from you walking into the clerk's shack.
Yeah.
And this
Oh, I didn't.
veteran,
Yeah, right.
grizzled
Exactly. Right.
veteran growling at you.
I know. Oh, I didn't finish the story on that because then I thought this guy just doesn't like me, and it's probably and also because he just doesn't like Asians. He's got this. He thinks we're all in the same war. And then I get out the third platoon. I get signed third platoon, and then I see him crossing. He's standing there in the the third platoon area, and I find out he's a squad leader. I said, "Fuck, that's really great." Now I got this guy who hates me, and not only that, he's a squad leader, and on top of that, he's everybody thinks highly of him. Because he's everybody's respectful to him. I think for a month. I see him with his eyes on me all the time. I could just feel him staring me, through the back and all that, and he never smiles, so I take that as just a hostile act, that he's just mad and he's looking for a fight with me, and that's why I took it, and I said to myself, I can't back down, if he wants a fight, I can't walk away and I can't back down. So I made it up in my mind, if he gave me a chance, I was going to take the first shot at him, because I was sure that was going to happen. So one day it was toward evening time, and I was walking in front of his bunker down to the bottom of the hill, and his bunker was way up there, and I'm walking there over down to where they had where you can get something to eat. Then I hear this voice up there, says, "Hey, Chong, come up here." Oh, he said, "Chong, come here." I look up and I see him across and standing right up there, And then I said to myself, well, I could just walk away, but I'm going to have to do this sooner or later, So, and then, so I said, well, might as well get it over with. So, so I started walking up the hill toward him where he's standing. He turns around and he goes inside the hooch. And I said, fuck, I'm going to get jumped here by him and by his platoon. If I take a shot at him, his squad is going to jump me, So, so I said, but fuck, might as well get this over with, So I storm into his troop, acting as bad as I can. And I said, yeah, what do you want, And he has his back to me, He turns around, and he's got a cup in his hand. And he says, "Chong, I've been watching you. You're going to be all right. Have a drink." Boy, did I feel stupid.
But probably good at the same time, right?
Huh?
Probably good at the same time, right?
Yeah,
This
right.
guy just offered me kind of like a piece.
Right, exactly. Not only that,
Offering.
Right, exactly.
What was it? Do you remember?
God, I do. It was, liquor is kind of pretty, was very rare, So when and then when somebody offers you a shot, it's you only do that to friends, You don't do that. You won't. You don't give it out to anybody else because it's kind of precious. Let's put it that way, because you can get beer, but you can't get hard liquor.
Right. It's a real nice gesture.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Right. So he
Was it whiskey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. It was. And I should know the brand, but I can't. But I can't play Canadian Club. That's what it was. He had a bottle of Canadian Club, so he pours himself one, and he says, "You're all right, Chong. I've been watching you. You're gonna be all right." So we both have a drink, and that was the end of that.
I mean, for the vibe I get, they all seem to like respect and like you from the get-go. When I talked to Mr. Kennedy, I was like, "What was your impression of Chong when you first met him?" And he's like, didn't know what to think. He was quiet. He did everything right. And then me and the other guys kind of looked at each other and was like, we need to take care of this guy because he's smart. And he said you were good in the woods, you know, good in the bush, trusted on patrols. So that's, you guys seem to bond really tight. I mean, for you to get incorporated into the hunter-killer team as fast as you did, you know, you must have had some good bush sense.
I guess so, or because, you know, Mac liked me.
Yeah, which is funny because the whole time you think this guy wants to fight me, but he's kind of like
he's
like running you through your paces,
right,
like
exactly. He said
sniffing you out.
Right, exactly. And he said he did it to all the new guys. He said I had to know, I have to know if I can depend on you. You know, because he said he because I did this to all the new guys. You know. It's just that I was a little bit more sensitive about it because of the fact that I was an Asian and fighting in an Asian war, and I knew that I would have to deal with that issue, you know. But I didn't have to, not as long as I was with my company.
You guys ended up being tighter than what I imagine a lot of other groups were like. You guys were so isolated and alone and dependent on each other and kind of had a little bit of a free reign to be creative with your operations. It's, and that's...
Yeah, you described it perfectly. We were lucky. We didn't get some hard ass by the book. We didn't have some guy, you know, some smart aleck,
former drill instructor
right,
from 2nd Platoon. Who
I was going to say that, but on the other hand, Bolton wouldn't shake your hand, but Bolton sure as hell did the same thing as Mac.
Yeah.
And what he would do is. He would take the new guy out on, you know, when they went out on patrol. Did he tell you that?
Oh, yeah.
When they come back in,
we talked about it. The shooter test.
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of scary.
Right, exactly. He says,
for a new kid.
Right.
In the way it's presented, right? We don't take no prisoners. You see a person, you shoot him.
Right.
And if he didn't stay with us. But he goes, at the same time, I ran him hard. But on a hot day, I made sure there was beer, and I would buy a block of ice every week. And I would give them each 2 beers after a patrol before they got to go get some downtime. Mm-hmm. So he said he had a pretty significant cachet of beer in his tent that got blown up by the sapper. Which was confirmed by Traviola because he's like, you know, yeah, we used to, if we were good boys, we'd get 2 beers. If we were bad boys, we'd burn the shitters.
That's why the guys, you know, were you know, when they talked about Gunner Bolton, they were, you know, about how tough and mean he was, but it would always be in a respectful voice. It wasn't like, I hate that son of a bitch. You know?
Right.
If I get a chance, I'm gonna frag him. You know, it's never
Nothing like that.
Nothing like
you guys
that.
didn't seem to have that kind of character.
No.
But it's like that tough love dad, right?
Yeah.
My dad cares about me, and that's why he's hard on me, because he wants me to succeed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he admits to that, too. You know, that's interesting.
No, he was, you know.
And how guilty he feels for, you know, he's up at a promotional board, and he feels like, all right, my job is to lead the first lieutenant when he's new in country, and, you know, that's when he lost Lieutenant Deneen while he was away. Mm-hmm. And I think that really beats him up.
Yeah, Deneen was, you know, that's why Hill 25 was called Deneen Hill, you know. And right in their interest, they had Deneen Hill. Well, you know, when people talk about you, you know, like, because I never met Lieutenant Deneen. He had been killed before I got there. But, you know, a lot of guys spoke highly of him, you know, when he was mentioned. You know, it was
he sounds like a real personable lieutenant, you know what I mean? And I think that he was motivated. Obviously, he wanted to run to the enemy and fight him. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like from the way they described him, he was personable, like give you the time of day as a person.
Right.
Decent.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't feel like he was one of those type of lieutenants that felt that, you know, I know it all. I just graduated from 60 days of OCS, and I graduated from college, so I'm smarter than all you dummies, you know.
Yeah.
So he was very, very.
And I've spoken with his brother. His brother's a very friendly, kind, nice guy. Very appreciative of the Mike 37 organization.
There was, you know, Deneen, you know, there was
Ruane was the other lieutenant he lost.
Okay, I didn't know him. You know,
I think that was in Operation Citrus.
was it first platoon,
Second.
second platoon? You know
Citrus
that,
was Christmas time, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. That was I was saying, you know, you hear that somebody got killed, but the name usually doesn't fit in with you, or because you don't know the person. It's kind of, as weird as it is, you could be on the same hill, but you don't even talk to the guy. You don't know. Like when we went to reunion, we recognized some of the guys by faces, but didn't know their name.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think about my company. Our shacks were all next to each other, and I knew very few people from the other platoons that I hadn't trained with prior to deploying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you train with them before you go, so you know a handful of them. But if you ain't ever, because you guys you're not in the same circles. You don't go to the same briefs. You're on opposite schedules, so I totally understand. It's only been 12 years. I couldn't name 5 guys in the other 2 platoons.
Said what's going to happen is probably everybody your age or whatever, we've been through this cycle ourselves. Their kids are going to school, so but you're gonna start having reunions, and reunions will say, hey, we got kids going to go to school, so you got to have it during the summer, and it's about around this time, sometime around between 40 and 50, because I was told that by somebody who was from World War II, who went through the same thing. He was at Iwo Jima, and he was saying, when it's kind of like when you get settled down, and when you get into your 40s or 50s, then you start wanting to kind of think you kind of get together.
You have your career, you've had your kids, you have your house.
Right.
Maybe you have a second wife.
Yeah.
And you're ready. You're comfortable. You're ready to start finding yourself again.
Right. Exactly. And so I would think that probably within the next 10 years, your units are probably going to have a reunion.
Yeah.
And my 3-7, you heard how it started. It just started with 8 guys at the wall when the wall was built, and George Martin just stood up there and says, anybody had to sign, say anybody served with my 3-7, And so there was 7 of them, 8 of them got together at George's house for the first one, and then so gradually each year it started getting bigger and bigger as we start getting the word out and more. In the beginning, it was just us guys that were from 65 to 68. Then after that, more, the later ones started coming in. So now from originally 7, I think the membership, or they have the name of about 500. So it's grown into a pretty big organization.
Yeah.
And it's it'll be. And it's good, and it's interesting. And then what happens is kind of like some of the things that operational things that you were on. It's kind of like your part of the war is just limited to this little part right here. You don't see this part right there yet. You have to talk to other people, and everybody has a little different slant on what happened. Exactly. Because they have their own perspective, and the time may be a little bit different, and the memories have faded a little,